just realized that I was muted. I'm an idiot. So yeah, so obviously we're live, but nobody can hear us. Oh, people can hear me. Ignore me, guys. Fuck off. I'm gonna mute that. All right, hello there. I'm back. I fixed it. Problems while we're here. So obviously today's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be retrying the mod. Hello, Bob. Hello to everybody also, by the way. I have a guest with me. I will introduce him in a moment. So we've done a completely fresh save. I just did the intro sort of stuff just to get it out of the way. All we have is ignore that stuff. That's not in the mod. That was, I forgot to delete it just because I can't be arsed. But this is a brand new save. We got StarSim. We're doing it from the new game. This is the new game plus. So I have the lead dev with me. How would you say your name? Because I would say Vaernus, but obviously I'm not the person who. How would you? Would you like me to say your name?
Vaernus is it, or Will?
Okay,
either one.
That will. Vaernus probably easier because I can see that. But yeah, thank you for joining me. I appreciate that you took time out of your day to sit with me and kind of walk me through some of the stuff and kind of, go over some of the stuff. So I appreciate that, and also so does the community. People are saying it's your name is probably easier than Vaernus. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, so I suppose obviously for anyone that may not be familiar, you guys originally like a Quarter Million Games. You guys did originally the big one you're kind of known for is Mining Conglomerate, which did a really good job of kind of the mining aspect, and it's kind of evolved into something a lot bigger. At least from our point of view, because obviously you probably had that envisioned from the very beginning. I know there's more stuff still coming. But obviously, the most recent kind of launch for you guys has been StarSim, and it obviously I think the part of the reason you're here is because I was playing through, and a few other people have kind of had some issues with it, and I feel like it's a good opportunity for kind of you to kind of go through some stuff and kind of just to kind of bounce off one another, because despite, as I've said a few times, despite my initial kind of calamities, I think the concept of it is very, very awesome. So I suppose first thing, just kind of walk us through, like, where did the idea behind this come from? Like, if you could kind of, if you wouldn't mind enlightening some of us.
Yeah, so really this concept is what drew us in as a studio. So Quarter Million Games has existed since 2018, and then David and I have been involved in the industry together since 2012. So both of us were the key producers on War for the Overworld. It was a Dungeon Keeper successor. So we had Total Biscuit was involved with this. Peter Molyneux himself got involved. So we were huge Dungeon Keeper fans, and to be able to build that at the beginning was huge. To bring that game back after that wonderful mobile game that was built. And so we kind of pivot off from there. We did Emberlight back in 2018, which was a roguelike that sort of blended Blue Mages and stuff from Final Fantasy, where you kind of build your strength from the enemies you're fighting, and it would play out as a roguelike, so it was different every time. But for years, we were getting kind of tired with the indie side, because it's so difficult to really get your foot in the door with the way there's so much stuff that comes out. And so when Bethesda started the program, we were like, yeah, we love Bethesda, and we were huge fans of Space Sims before. I've played all of them. My favorite is X3 Terran Conflict, which is why there's the gates in this right now, more so than the newer game. And so we've been working on StarSim since October 23. This is almost 3 years to build this. In between that, because of the program starting, we built Mining Conglomerate. That actually incorporated a lot of the core elements we were working towards to make that function. And then we ran into a lot of pitfalls afterwards. For us and Bethesda, with that whole loading problem. I'm sure everybody ran into that. That was unexpected from us or Bethesda. The engine should never have even been able to do that. So we spent months trying to identify why that could even happen from anybody making creations in this program. And we finally fixed it, but I get that was not a great point. A lot of folks had a lot of issues with Mining Conglomerate because of that. We were tirelessly trying to fix that problem for quite a while. In the middle of this, the strike was happening for voice actors.
Sorry, can I just cut in there just really quickly?
Yeah.
So this issue, because what was the issue for people that might not have been there early days of it? Like, what was the issue specifically that kind of plagued both you guys and Bethesda? If you could...
Really, it's we seem to keep making projects that are doing crazy things with their engine way beyond what they expected anybody to do. So it's the same thing with Sim Settlements, right? Like, so changes had to be made in the engine to do stuff in sim settlements. So pretty much we keep and all the credit to King Gath, and they do amazing work. We keep pushing the envelope for what this engine does, and in some cases we're doing stuff that is massively breaking the engine, but in essence we're doing things that are bettering the future games, because these things are now getting kind of looked into for when you push it as far as we're doing, and we've resolved them. So with Mining Conglomerate, it was just we were doing things in the engine they never expected could even happen, and we had to make adjustments on my side, our side, to get that resolved, and we did. We figured that out, and then it ran well, and then we fixed that, and then it broke the terminals, then we fixed the terminals, and now the mission system is acting weird. We're waiting for a few months for that patch to go out, but they're hammered right now with awesome content in the queue. So.
Yeah. Sorry for interrupting. So now that obviously people are aware of that, now if you want to kind of talk more about because that is, again, that is the kind of the big thing, was for a lot of people, they were kind of looking at like, well, Mining Conglomerate's awesome, but like there's clearly like there's more content to come and stuff, and then there was a bit of a pause. Now I've seen obviously on Reddit, can you explain that though to people that might not be aware why the kind of it stopped production, or it was kind of somewhat delayed a little bit, I suppose?
Yeah, so there's certain expectations with our studio and King Gath and a few other studios that are involved in terms of what we kind of have to conduct ourselves, what we're trying to aim for as a quality level. In the case of Mining Conglomerate, the voice actor strike was right in the middle of it, and it ran for another year after we finished the first version of Mining Conglomerate. Now, initially, we were trying to go to non-union actors because that's kind of the only alternative you had at the time. But the issue was Bethesda is union, and even though we're third party, we are affected by the fact that Bethesda is part of the union. And so when we talked to non-union actors, they were being advised that from the union that if they took voice acting work, they would be banned in the future from doing union work if they so decided to go that route. And so it chilled all voice actors. So when we couldn't get the quality level that we needed, we had to pivot to another project. So this was never a situation of forget it, and that's kind of it. We felt that the core elements of it were pretty solid, and we had to come back to it at a time when the voice actor strike ended, but we couldn't wait for that because there was no idea when it was going to happen. So that's when we pivoted full force into StarSim, which at the time we were designing in parallel. Now that we've launched everything, we have the ability to move forward and work on Mining Conglomerate, and it's very likely now, because we've had a lot of breakthroughs since that we can pull Mining Conglomerate back into the StarSim sphere, if you want to call it that. So we're going to be working on it. The voice actor thing the whole thing was a mess. They had valid reasons. I'm not going to argue the point. Stealing AI, I get their point of view.
Like, I know that, that was because that was, it was a dark days for pretty much everything regarding like gaming as a whole. Like I remember, completely off topic, but I remember Destiny had like I don't know if you played Destiny, but it had like an expansion out, and like one of the voice actors, even though they recorded the lines, they weren't allowed to use the lines. So you had this badass cutscene with like 3 hive gods, and one of them just doesn't talk. They're just subtitles, and it's like, goddamn, like that's when it's kind of, like it's so encompassing. People don't realize that. But so with obviously with because talk a little bit about the idea, obviously, because I said this to you before, when you guys were kind of envisioning Mining Conglomerate and stuff, like you mentioned it there to me about like how with with the StarSim, you're kind of doing them in blocks. So like some people might be like a little bit hesitant to look at that because they're like, oh, is like this person just going to kind of take our money, give us a kind of essentially a tech demo, and then kind of walk away? Now, obviously, anybody with who looks closely will see that that's not what you did with Mining Conglomerate. But what's the kind of what's the kind of the idea behind that? Like, why do you choose to go that route, if you wouldn't mind kind of, and with the kind of that route with StarSim, if you want to go into a bit of what you have planned for like the different blocks coming?
Yes. So, what I would say, I'm talking from the somebody who plays games that likes to download mods, which I do all the time. 9 times out of 10, I'd be just as cautious for any other base concept for it if it was done through separate modules. But when you look at the space sims are a weird development cycle. The four major ones right now, so X4 Foundations, Elite Dangerous, No Man's Sky, Star Citizen, they're 8 to 14 years in development. And there's no sign of them stopping because they don't need to do sequels. They're finding out every year a new cool feature to make space more interesting. And so that's our approach to this whole thing. This program is not really built to do this a full game to that level because you're taking a year or 2 years to QA it, and sometimes with the way that you're building stuff, that's just not feasible with the way the creation kit works and everything. And on top of that, from a lot of the responses we've gotten, a lot of the features that are in a space simulation aren't interesting to everybody. So by doing this modular, where Beyond Space was the can the engine even do a simulation? Yes, definitively yes. To the point where even Bethesda is amazed that the engine could even do these things. We've proven it now. I know there's quirks that we are actively working on. It's going to be resolved very quickly, but the fundamentals are there. Now this gives us the ability to say, all right, cool. What are the different things that somebody would like to see in a space sim now that we know the fundamentals are here? Autopilot, most recommended. Absolutely, probably the first thing that we do. Being able to joyride around while you're having autopilot move around the entire gate network, and then GTA style radio stations, so you listen to cool music while you're doing that, and you're crafting something and you're researching stuff and talking to people, or a lot of people just want to look outside and just see the sights while they're passing by. Somebody wants to run a corporation. Cool. We build a module that does economy-based stuff, and you can add that on. You're able to pick these things, add them on, and build your own space experience. So that's our view. We'll still go through and do, like we're doing right now, bug fixes, feedback, bug fixes, tweaks, until everybody feels where we are right now with this is to the right standards. And so all the critiques we're getting, it's been interesting going through Reddit. I knew what was going into. I've done enough of these launches. My stance on it is, if somebody's posting on there, I don't care how it's conveyed. I was military. You're not going to insult me. I don't care. But the point is, there's a reason somebody posted something, and we took critiques out of every single post, and we're incorporating that right now into what we're doing for the build, which we're expecting version 1.09. We're going to push it as a separate patch, because if we submit this, who knows when it passes. So this will be a patch we're trying to aim for by the end of the weekend. And then this is mainly taking the main feedback we've gotten so far, and then we're going to pivot into some issues with ship parts to make sure that they all work. When we get past those two, outside of we're trying to make patchless updates to StarSim so that pretty much every mod will work with it, and there's not many mods that are incompatible right now in our tests, then we can feel confident to then pivot back to the work we're doing on the autopilot mechanism and then get that out as soon as possible.
So what I will say real quick, because I do want to touch on that in a minute, but right now, am I at a point where I see the gates, and I just want to, if you can give me a little bit of insight. So this, obviously, this is, ignore Vasco, he's just talking about the usual stuff. So I notice on our, something new is I have a Hephaestus mine here. Is that one of your new, is that one of these new kind of, please tell me that's new, because if it's not, people are going to bother me. That is new. Okay, good. Yep. So these are like, because I suppose the first thing I want to ask, and it's something, are any of these going to be boardable? Are they boardable? I tried to find some in my initial playthrough and I couldn't. Is that something that it depends on the situation? Is it not really intent?
Not boardable by you yet. They are boardable, quote unquote, by AI right now. Freighters will go to these places and pick up raw resources and move them to places that need those resources, 100%. The ability to board with them, that's the parts we're working on as well to make it kind of cleaner, better presentation. That will be part of the economy module.
So if you're not interested in the kind of economy side of things, what are these like? Are these just kind of essentially, because I know there is ones obviously you can attack, but in regards to the one behind me, sorry, I'm just killing this guy who doesn't kill me. Are they, what were they? Are they just kind of more like scenery sort of stuff, or like? will they eventually kind of play a role with, like, say, like outside of the economy stuff, or is it mainly for the economy side of things?
Well, so it's kind of nuanced, I think. So looking at the station by itself, I would say they're more of a aesthetic. They're a backdrop. But the fact that the freighters can utilize these, and when you're looking at a simulation, and this is kind of our backbone of StarSim, whether you like the economy or not, the economy is the core of these simulations. And then what's interesting for a player is when things muck up the economy. So in X series, you have the economy running and the freighters are doing whatever. It doesn't really matter what they're doing. Then you got military patrols moving about trying to protect all of those things. And then you get the pirates coming in there trying to muck up the gears. So where that mine matters is when the freighters come in to pick up stuff from that and where they're traveling. And then what happens is if those freighters happen to get picked up by a raid from Crimson Fleet, now you have content that you can interact with or not. You can basically say, I don't really care. They should take care of their own problems, kind of thing. So that's where, for now, the content will matter. I would say that one of the main focuses of StarSim was taking the features that are in Starfield that they built for space, and there's quite a few of them that you might use one time, two times, and that's it. And getting them to function and giving them more purpose to function within the game. So I think when we expressed all their features and how StarSim works, it kind of indirectly made it so that the shady aspects of the game stood out more with what these do. The ability to do pirating is now greatly expanded because of the way that those things work. There's not a lot in terms of direct economy aspects of it, which is why when we do something with the economy module, this is what would bring those out. So you can dock at a station, directly transact with them. You can play the stock market, which is running already, but it's being used only by the AI to support their operations. Now you can play the stock market, and I mean that metaphorically and literally, where your actions, if you blockade somewhere, directly impact the stock market when you're blocking the ability for the economy to work, and then companies are basically bottoming out because you went and stopped their ability to function, then you can capitalize on those actions to make a whole bunch of money when you become the savior and fix the problem that you yourself created. So we got some really cool stuff we're building for folks that want to get more into the economy side, which the stations then would be 100% hooked in.
Okay. So I just noticed I have this gate to create. Now I have played X4 very briefly, but I was, holy crap, that's amazing. I'm sad it's not on Xbox as a primarily Xbox player. So these gates and stuff, they're meant to kind of do what they do in X4. So in like for people, obviously, if people are going to be downloading the mods, I'm just trying to, I forgot I can get out of my seat and look at the thing. If people are trying to say, if they're downloading the mod, obviously they're going to want this to be, they're going to use this part of the game. Where does it does it differ from, say, your standard kind of super cruise or kind of grab jumping and stuff? Is it like an optional thing? Is it something, is it kind of different?
So actually, that's one of the biggest reasons why we decided to build this in Starfield as well, because we felt that, and I think a lot of the community can agree as well, what we've seen so far for 3 years pretty unanimously is that the charm of older Bethesda games were lost when everything is fast travel. I think cruise mode has absolutely helped when the quests direct you within the same system, but as was mentioned by quite a few people, most of these quests are sending you to other systems. So it's a cool feature, but it's not quite there to solve the problems. So when we saw Starfield, we saw, cool, we can go through and blank slate on the space, but we needed to bring back the Bethesda charm. So those gates, we talk about this quite a bit in the past, those gates basically bring back the ability to go through and have that experience of Sanctuary to Diamond City or Helgen to Whiterun. And what Bethesda shines at is the ability to divert your attention into other things. They're exceptionally good at it. You're trying to go somewhere, and then 3 hours later, you have 55 quests in your journal. because you somehow got pulled all these directions with cool world building and stuff like that. This is what the gates basically allow right now. You can just blindly explore through the gates, and we've done custom work on every single place you go to. So they're the core part of kind of traveling between places, but we don't take anything away from what's in the game right now. The reward of doing that initial exploration is you can use grab jumping to go back to places to save you the time. You can cruise mode between different places in the current system. So that's kind of how we see the gates. They're not a requirement. Once you go through a gate, you're free to jump. I do it myself. When I was doing Crimson Fleet testing, I did that trek all the way to the key one time. It's a pain in the butt. And then I just jumped to there every time that the quest required it. I'm not going to do the network again after that point. And it's the same way I approach X3.
And so, with regards to, because we're looking here at the navigation console, it now has a different function. In the vanilla game, you click it and it just brings up essentially your fast travel map. So now it has the hologram, which is quite cool. And I will say, a little bit confusing. I understand it now. Some people obviously won't first kind of look at it, but like with the intent of this, because I think I mentioned it in in the stream, but I to be honest, I probably worded it poorly. So these are like, with the placement of these are laid out the exact same way the three-dimensional space map is, just in a 2D, correct?
Yes and no. I think that's part of the issues we're seeing in the feedback. So the problem with either the Galaxy map or the Star System map is they dynamically change. It was actually a problem I was talking about a few hours ago. So when new things show up on the Star System map, the engine just rotates everything around. So there's nothing in here that correlates whatsoever to the Galaxy or the Star System map at all. We don't even use those as a concept within StarSim, other than you can use them to cruise mode and jump. So this is meant to be really all you need for any kind of travel in the network. And then you would use something like cruise mode for seamless travel to get out of the network or get back into the network itself, is at least the thought process.
And with regards to, because I just seen someone, Doc is mentioning, is this the, because I know there, again, a few people were kind of mentioning the hologram. To be honest with you, I didn't initially notice it, because I know that when you first activate it, I think it takes a minute to kind of pop up. Is there any plans to potentially change it slightly so that it like Doc is saying, would it be cool to have like a background so it's not completely transparent? I know that probably defeats the purpose of it, like kind of being hologram-like, but you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, so we're doing a few things right now actually as part of this patch, and then we have a few things kind of planned out in the near future. So the biggest changes from a fundamental standpoint with this is we're going to be adding a game option in for the 1.09 patch, which I saw a message in the chat before too. We're going to push the patch standalone, ideally by the end of the weekend, with the way things are going, unless something fights with us, and then we'll post it and push it to QA, and then when they get to it, they'll update the main one. We'll consider the version that's available in Creations as our stable branch, like you would when I launch stuff on Steam, and then we'll have these patches available that'll be always up to date, so people don't have to wait for that to get caught up, and you're getting the same experience. But there's a few major changes to this map. So one, we're adding a game option in. You can flip it so it shows the map all the time. You can flip it so it's settled systems only, so it only shows UC and Freestar space, but leaves the fog of war for everything else, or leave it the way it is here, where it's just the 4 hubs and the places you've explored. So you have that the flexibility to kind of tune this the way you want. The other thing we're going to do that's been requested is if you click on any of the orbits that you're not in, this will plot a course visually within this map itself. So it'll show a line and everything for the route you need to take to get to that point. So those are the two major things for this. And then we're also looking into being able to place this map as something put against a wall. And that should help with the transparency, because you have the wall as the background for it. That's not going to be on this next patch, but it's in the near future.
So with regards to you saying like that, because I feel like that was my one biggest issue, because I spawned like over here and I'm like, oh god, how do I get home? Like with regards to being able to kind of click on somewhere and plot a course, will it, because obviously I'm assuming, and I just want to, if I'm wrong, tell me, do these lines coming out of, say for instance, the UC one there, is that mean that there's gates leading to another system at like north, south, east, and west? Is that what that means?
Those are just telling you that there's gates to a nearby network orbit. So That should be Mars. So yeah, so that's basically that's saying that there are 4 gates, north, south, east, and west, that will allow you to enter or exit Mars. Um, and we've designed the network map to kind of be close to what you would typically want to see around the star system map and things like that. So they tell you that. So for instance, if you're in Vectera right now,
Mhm.
the only route you would have would be east by design to get you to Crete because it's the tutorial. And then when you get to Crete, you'll start seeing the lines that say these are the directions you can leave. Now, that's the other big problem that was brought up in feedback. Um, that's one we're also fixing as well, where the gates will have in the scenes themselves or in space itself the direction of what you're going, north, south, east, and west. Because I think that's the problem. There's nothing in space as a reference point to have an understanding of direction. And we need to have that conveyed on the gates. So basically, you can, if you're in Mars right now, theoretically, you know that there's 4 gates, north, south, east, and west. When you're looking out from your ship, you would then be able to target and see north gate to, I think it goes to Jupiter or something, and then east gate goes to Phobos, and south goes to Earth, and west goes to Deimos. And you go, cool, I get it. Those are the directions to go. And then when you go through those gates, now this will update with the next grid slot to show Deimos and the gates that it has to kind of clue you into the directions you can take if you're just exploring without a destination, basically.
So then, okay, so I was completely wrong. Then I apologize. So then, how do you differentiate between, let's say, for instance, like if let's say I am in Earth, like, or I'm on Mars, and I want to go to Alpha Centauri, like, is there any way, like, because like obviously there's, like you said, there's gates that go to different areas in that system. But is there, because obviously there is also gates that go to different systems, is there a way to kind of differentiate those gates? Or are they going to kind of look the same? Again, I've jumped through a few of them, and the only kind of telltale sign was you click on them and it says where it goes. But I feel like that can, again, it's a bit kind of confusing, and I could just be a bit slow.
No. That's part of the feedback we've gotten as well. So StarSim doesn't have the concept of a system. Like it's just the network. So it's just 290 or so orbits connected by a network itself. It doesn't understand systems. It doesn't understand the galaxy map. It's just this network structure. That's it. And the network structure, we basically hand built this based off of all the content that's in Starfield. So one of the things we first run into when we first started building this is that there's a whole bunch of handcrafted content that Bethesda made that I never even saw, because you would have had to pick the right system, pick the right planet to find a unique point of interest that has that content. And when we went into this, we basically said, find all the places that are in the game that has a spot you go to for a quest, or a place that Bethesda made something unique in space or on that local planet, and plug them into a network so that you can travel through this network of roughly 300 places, and you can experience 100% of what Starfield offers. The other 800 or so orbits that exist in the game, then that's your do whatever. You know, maybe they have random events. You can go out there and build outposts, stuff like that. But if you fully traverse the whole network, you've experienced everything that they. Ooh,
I
that was
just got a
interesting.
jump scare there. Yep. Continue, sorry.
Yeah, and got scanned by the ships. Yeah, that's the point of what we went into. So like it's now in terms of that system differentiation, I think where that matters, and it's one of the fixes we're doing right now for 1.09. My co-developer Sarah has done this thing called a system hop. Now she understands the map, but she understands that she can cruise mode, for instance, from Crete to Samadhi, because she knows that is the border of a system to get her over to Altair. Now that's the part we're going to be conveying better moving forward with this patch, where the network map itself will show where the system borders are at, so you can clearly see them. The gate name, if we can get it to work within the limitations of the naming system, will tell you that it's a system gate versus one that's going to keep you within the same system. And when you're going through in cruise mode, you'll see which network orbits is one that contains a gate that'll take you to another system. So I think those 3 major changes, on top of plotting courses and stuff like that, I think that will iron out most of the issues when you're first starting everything up.
I just noticed here, as again, we're just looking at all these. So obviously, one of the things you can clearly see is that there's a lot more stuff going on. And I'm guessing that was kind of the purpose of the gates was, again, like you're saying, it's like with the journey from one location at the start of a Bethesda game to kind of, like Diamond City and stuff like that. So these obviously are a great way to kind of pull your kind of like, it's not supposed to pull your attention, but it's easier to make the space feel more alive. It's obviously vanilla Starfield. You jump, the only time you kind of ever come across people is when you jump to an orbit, that's when random events can happen and you're like, oh, I'm not alone. But with this, there's a lot more going on, which I really, really like. With regards though to, because one of the things I'm a bit concerned about, and you can kind of see it here, given that it's, and then this is just kind of my personal, I don't know if there's any like super in-depth truth behind it, but Bethesda's game, it's almost like they never intended for there to be like a lot of stuff on the screen with the ship stuff. Is that something you guys are like, have you guys been aware of? Like, do you like, because obviously with like, if you play like certain sim games like X4 and stuff, there can be a lot of stuff on your screen. Like, is there any ways you guys have like could remedy that potentially? Like, obviously Starfield doesn't like say it doesn't have the way like, Elite Dangerous has things where you have like the different search swap, is it not search? Like you can like, well, I play in controller, you press down the D-pad, you can like swap to very specific points of interest. Is there anything about that, or is it just, I'm probably kind of throwing something at you, it's a bit of words, you get what I'm saying though?
Yeah, so it's tricky. It's very tricky because space is like a game within a game when they built this whole thing out. It's an interior cell, like you're an interior somewhere else, but then they converted it into space. You're actually in the whole star system. It's a crazy system they built, and I give them props to be able to take this engine that's gone through a lot over the last 20 years and build this onto it the way that they did. It's been tough. Like, we've made some adjustments to the HUD that we were able to, because it's tricky with the way they did the space HUD. It's not like anywhere else where they were all individual things. Like when you're walking around on a planet, whatever it is, there's the main HUD, and then when you hit the scan button, that's a whole separate HUD, a whole separate file. And the benefit of that approach was that you can detect that, you can do things with it, that helps out your ability to build stuff. That's not the case with space. Space is HUD. Everything you see, this one right now, the ship scanner, the targeting HUD, if you have the targeting system, strafing, all that, one file that they've done all this stuff in there in many ways that you can't even kind of decipher with the way they did it. Now, we've made a bit of a breakthrough yesterday that is going to allow us to do a bit more with the HUD. So there's methods we can take. We were testing some of these before. Like there's a way to put a keyword on objects to make it so that doesn't show up on the HUD. However, and we got this confirmed with Bethesda, there's no way to determine distance from the player ship to anything else because the player ship is technically not there. The way they set it all up is the player ship is always at the center, and technically everything you're seeing is being moved around you. And so when you do stuff like distance, it just says that you're at the middle of the place at 000 all the time. And this causes major complications with certain things over the years, trying to, if you're 10 kilometers away, turn off all these stations and just show maybe a hub. And then when you get closer, show more. Well, we don't have any reliable way to go through and do distance, so it makes it difficult for us to figure it out. So we're going to investigate. Now we made a few breakthroughs on the HUD. If we can just rebuild the whole thing from scratch, we'll just go and do that and make it a bit more friendly to a space sim with more content around you all the time.
So one of the things I want to ask, because you can probably notice if, well, not difficult. I mean, you notice because obviously you've made the changes, but like a lot of the weapons have been tweaked. It seems like when you actually go into the shipbuilder, like there's a lot of changes. What was what reason prompted the changes? Like because obviously we have an infinite boost now, which is quite cool. I'm assuming that's to allow you to kind of get to locations faster, but then like you tweaked kind of weapons and stuff as well and other stuff. Like where did the intention behind that come from?
Yeah, so that was probably the first thing we did back in October 23 was get the spreadsheets, which we have. I never would have touched a spreadsheet again, especially after a space sim. But the problem we ran into very early is that Starfield was built exactly to specs. And by that, I say it's built for A, B, and C class ships and nothing else. So the values are too low. And the problem you run into with that is then when we start trying to do capital ships, and it's the same problem that they run into themselves, to make them competitive and able to be destroyed, you have to nerf them down so much, which is the legendary ships are large capital ships that may only be 1,000 or 2,000 more shielding than a armed to the teeth C-class ship. So you're limited, and we tested this a lot with Mining Conglomerate because we never changed anything in terms of the ship stats. And the problem we run into in Mining Conglomerate is if you do some of those missions that sends in the space or capital ships, and if they take out the capital ships that we place in those places intentionally to balance things out, it's effectively impossible for the best weapons in Starfield to do any damage to those ships at all. And we didn't do crazy numbers with that either. So it put us in kind of a bind because I get the folks that have a lot of concerns about the ship stats, but until we can find the numbers that work that makes a capital ship worthwhile, those capital ships are necessary for the way the simulation works. So we were basically forced, and we've tried 3 years now to test out balancing numbers back at vanilla and get the capital ships good. And we have 8 military ship classes in StarSim. We have multiple transport types, and we have multiple passenger types to make very clear roles for each of these ships. So it's it's just been a very tough process to get this stuff going. So the ship changes we made were made to work with what we built here to give us the flexibility to go through and do this stuff. Now we've identified a way for folks that use Falklands and stuff like that. We can dynamically go through and balance their parts into how StarSim works, and then you won't have to worry about stuff not functioning when you're sitting there and playing with those. And that's most likely the path we'll take probably next week once we get through all these changes with the mapping and stuff.
I just jumped in because I think this is the first time I've arrived at vanilla space, and I see an orbital weapons platform, and I'm like, thank you. Bethesda didn't really look in that aspect of the game where they're like defending it. But one thing I'm noticing is a bit of pop-in. Now I'm playing on Xbox and stuff. Is that intentional? Because obviously that's not necessarily a mod thing. The way Bethesda do their kind of render distance and stuff. Because again, because what I'm noticing is like when you jump into like say for instance when I originally made the first jump, it kind of spawns you quite close to the new kind of POIs. Like there was a spatial anomaly and there was asteroids. Is that kind of always going to be like the case where like the gates are going to be where most of the stuff tends to congregate, like, and then if you like say further out, it's just kind of there's going to be like nothing out there, or you get what I'm saying? Because everything currently, it feels like when you jump into a gate. Now, obviously, I haven't tested a load of different gates, but it seems like everything's kind of almost within arm's reach. Is that was that the intention?
Yes. So you kind of look at each of these orbits. The gates are about 20 kilometers out from the center, and that's kind of your economic portion where most of the civilian ships are going to travel. A lot of the stations will be in that area, but we design each of these pretty far out from that point. So in many cases, these orbits are designed out 50, 60, 70 kilometers from the center. And this is where we tend to hide a lot of things for discovery. So we might have a derelict ship somewhere that's far off the beaten path. Rarely, if ever, do we put them in places like this because somebody else would have found that ship before you. But when you're in the unclaimed territories, you might have to go and travel 40, 50 kilometers out to find a derelict ship. And we always have led breadcrumbs. We're not going to have somebody in space where you can go all directions, randomly pick a direction and hope that you go the right way to find a ship. Because the derelict ships and any things that are hidden will never show up on this HUD. You have to be within, I think it's like 5 kilometers before the HUD will pop up and your sensors pick it up. So basically, we want you to be able to explore outside of this area. If your focus is economy and things, your ships will be here, your military patrols will be here. But we've always added elements far off the beaten path.
Like, I will say, it feels far more alive, which I like. I've just noticed this Enlightened Emissary, and I'm kind of interested. Is this one of these House Vaernus people? Or is this another religious faction? Because you've like named stuff, which is quite cool.
That's a House of the Enlightened, I think. Are they the other religion in the game?
Oh, that would make sense. Yes. Okay, that's valid. This is very cool. The I will say the shipbuilder in me. I'm seeing a lot of Hope Tech parts on these big ships. Is there because obviously with regards to say like making all these different ships and stuff, like is everything that's currently here, like the ship designs and stuff, is that something that could change over time, or is that like, look, we can only do so much? Because I'm guessing realistically, if you had to like design because are these ships, are they all kind of handmade, or are they kind of generated somewhat?
We hand built all the ships, but they're using vanilla parts. We didn't design any new assets for these because there's a good enough spread in the base game that it's unnecessary to do more than that.
That is
So
fair.
these are all built from scratch.
Because you mentioned the capital ships and stuff. Sorry, I really like seeing kind of big military ships in the game. There's not a lot aside from the Vigilant, and it's always a kind of a toss up if that's actually truly like a warship. Oh, that's quite cool. They have like colors. That's very cool. So with regards to, because I think one of the big things people are going to be asking is like, if you're into like obviously games like X4 and like sim games like that, this is this is going to be very awesome for you. That's a good question, Paul. I will ask that in 1 second. But with regards to like, say like, if you're not interested in that, like, could you like currently as it stands, is this essentially just a kind of a way to kind of liven up space for people that aren't really kind of, because I know you said there's going to be modules that are going to come along. Hopefully we can talk about that in a few minutes. Like you're going to have like space combat themed ones, like an kind of economy themed ones. Like currently, what is the kind of the appeal to kind of the average consumer? Because I know you did say like initially like this was meant to be kind of for the more kind of the simmers, but
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, the entire point of StarSim was to bring back Bethesda's charm. So I think if you're ignoring the simulation and you're ignoring the enhancing the space features, the entire point of the Gate network was to make it so that when you're traveling between two quest points, you're traveling between them. And then what happens is the simulation is trying to throw curveballs to get you pulled away into a large battle happening or something interesting that you see in the distance. And then we took all of the old random space encounters that you just had a chance to find and we put them into certain orbits so everybody can actually experience all those rather than just hoping you get one of those, because they made some really good encounters. And then you have the planet next to you, which when you do the scanner, you can see all the point of interest that are on there. So what really, if we're going to distill StarSim down, it's, can we create the same feel when you're going from Sanctuary to Diamond City? That was intentionally designed by Bethesda to make it so you do not go to Diamond City. Either Preston sending you to fix another settlement, or you're getting caught into the Brother to Steel fighting at the police station, or a bunch of other points of interest that are directly on that path. And that's by design, because the Bethesda games are all about getting diverted every time you're trying to get to the place you're supposed to go to. So that's what the network has basically brought in. Then that simulation sits there because now you're creating emergent features. You don't know what the simulation is going to do. It's different every time you play it. So one time, you run into a really major attack that's happening in Crete as a border to the territory where they're at. Another time, it's nice and calm. It's different. A battle might happen in an orbit and you never go there. You never even know what happened, but it had an impact because 5 freighters were blown up in there, which messed the economy up. So now shipbuilders need to rebuild those ships, which causes the economy to start to ramp up, which creates more freighters, which then the Crimson Fleet goes, man, this is a juicy target over here, and they send a raid in to go attack that place. So that's where like the economy isn't directly accessible, but it absolutely has an impact on how things are happening around you all the time.
and those features currently, are any of them in the game, or are they something that's coming? Oh, they are. Okay.
100%. Everything in here right now allows that stuff to happen.
I just want to, something I do notice, which is quite cool. I didn't spot this the first time. I don't think I had a quest. So when I highlight the gate, it says quest target. So it's obviously leading me to where my quest target is. Will this work only if you've kind of discovered the gates that lead to there, or will it work even if you haven't?
So that's the experimental system we built before launch, trying desperately to not have to edit every single quest. So we wanted to go through and make all the gates objectives and quests, but the problem is that requires us to directly edit every single quest, and it puts us in a bit of a bad spot because if we do that, we're now conflicting with everything. And then the other problem is when we go that route, we then can't do that for DLC. Verified creators, we're not allowed to have any dependencies. So I can't build anything towards Shattered Space or Terran Armada in a way unless it's done indirectly, period, as a requirement. So this system basically tries to use information that Bethesda put on all their quests to guess at where they're trying to send you to it, in essence. Like, they basically have a script on there that says, we would like the player to be at this location, and if they're on this stage, then we move to the next stage forward. Now, the reason that that system doesn't always pop up all the time is because the pathfinding that we had to build that tells a ship, I'm in Jemison, I need to get to Aquila, that we had to build an entire pathfinding algorithm to accomplish that. And Papyrus is infinitely slower than every engine we've worked in 20 plus years. So we've had to make a lot of strides into StarSim to make it so that StarSim slows itself down so that all the other mods and the game runs smooth, and pathfinding tends to always get massively hit by that. So it takes a long time for that system to figure out the route, which then takes a long time before you start seeing any of the stuff popping up.
So I'm just after noticing the Crimson Fleet are after jumping in. They're actually attacking. I think we're at Phobos, which that's quite interesting because in the vanilla game, Crimson Fleet don't come this close. I mean, they do in the random encounters, but like, is this the sim in action basically currently, with them kind of jumping in?
Yeah,
right, that is
because they're gonna. I think they're attacking Phobos because I think the Vigilance eventually gets there at some point. I believe in the Crimson Fleet storyline.
When you now, in regards to that, what are you saying that like this is kind of a prelude to what's going on, or this is just this kind of like how does the storyline does the storyline affect stuff? I am on console, guys. You should know this. So I mean, you might not know this. You might be new here, but I am playing on Xbox Series X currently. So with stuff like this, because one of the things, and again, if anybody's not familiar with like X4 games like that, Elite Dangerous is another good example. You can see like things like I think X4 showed me more. If you have, let's say, enemies in one gate network, right? And that gate network links to another one, they will kind of launch attacks. This is what we're seeing now since I came from a gate network that is tech. Because at this point is Crete. I think Crete is that what's happening? Like the Crimson Fleet are coming over from one network to another? Is that a thing, or am I just kind of making up stuff?
Yes. So Phobos and Crete get slammed by Crimson Fleet because if you go north of Crete, you're in kind of undiscovered territory. But if you go over a few to the right and then down, you're in their territory. So typically, when they're going to attack UC or Freestar, almost exclusively they come north and then go and either hit Phobos or they hit Crete. Rarely do you see them hitting the southern parts because that's usually spacers and stuff because of the way that we set the whole map up. And what we do for this, basically, it's actually kind of a trick. So we have spacers kind of on the outside of the network, and we say, hey, build a patrol of a carrier and a few escorts. Cool. Then we say, we want you to patrol the faction. Well, the neat part about when we did this, accidentally, was the spacer said, cool, I'm on the northwest of the entire network, and I picked the one in the far southeast, which causes that carrier now to fly straight through UC space and then engage the military that's there. So when that happened one time, we were like, cool, we're leaving that in, that's a feature now, and there's one on our way. And then Spacers and Crimson Fleet will actively send raids out. And actually, Starborn will do the same thing later on in the game as well. So they'll basically say, give me a juicy target in UC because they're carrying a bunch of good stuff. Cool, this freighter just picked up a whole bunch of capital ship guns. Then they go and build a raid, and then they send the raid after that freighter. 9 times out of 10, they're going to probably get to the edges of those territories, and if a military patrol is there, it's going to engage them and probably blow them up. But if they get through, they're trying to work their way to the freighter to blow that freighter up and then start attacking all the stuff in that area to loot.
Okay, sorry, I'm blown away by seeing all these cool things. But that's that's one of the coolest things I liked about those kind of sim games. You see in Elite Dangerous too. I used to annoy me when players had like purposely, because that's the whole point, they could like mess with certain factions to kind of topple the commanding or the controlling faction in like different systems and stuff. So like having the sort of system is just really cool. Now a lot of people are asking like to see anything. Is there any recommendations on like if I want to kind of just get deep in the action, like with combat related stuff? Any suggestions on locations I could potentially go to? or just to kind of show off the more?
Well, I would say if you love combat in space, do the Crimson Fleet storyline. The final battle is epic, and I'll leave it at that because we take elements of what they already had in that battle, plus the fleets that are already there by default because it's their capital location, and we've extended that. You basically end up in a massive battle of like 5 capital ships versus 5 capital ships, and it's I was actually surprised the engine could handle it when we first did it, and we had to turn a little bit of it down. But if your goal, and it's one of the biggest goals that I tend to go towards, even in mining conglomerate, to have major space battles, and you want to utilize stuff like Watchtower to bring in your fleet or fleet command, that's the pathway to take if you want to go space combat by far. There's some space combat situations. I mean, you're going to have situations like this play out. I can't really give a location. Typically speaking, if you're looking for combat, the borders of territory are where most of it's going to actually happen. So once you start opening the map up and you see that UC is against unclaimed territory, you know that place is going to most likely be hit by somebody at some point. So it's just checking those places every so often to see, is there a battle happening at that time? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But if you're looking at sort of the flow of what Starfield already offers, Crimson Fleet is insane, literally insane when you're dealing with multiple parts of that storyline that have space combat.
So that you mentioned Watchtower, and that leads me on to a question. A lot of people are wondering, how is it going to affect mods? Because this is obviously huge in scope of what it's doing. Like, I know that patches and obviously can be a thing, but because you've essentially, like, you know, like with regards to like different pieces and stuff, you've kind of touched a lot of the shipbuilding. I'll use an example like ASC, Deimos, and Tayo. I've seen a few people were having issues with that. Is it just a thing where, like, obviously, like, will patches always be a necessity when it comes to stuff like this? Like, is there anything? I'm guessing anything regarding space is going to require a patch because it touches space. But like, how compatible is it in general with other mods without patches? In your
Surprisingly well, way more than we ever expected it to be. So our original intention was to make it so it was incompatible with everything until we could start whitelisting the stuff that we could actively test. About a year ago, Sarah, Tennessee, a lot of folks use a lot of his creations, did some pretty extensive tests during our QA period, as well as a few others, just running it through their own mod orders. Ran fine. You had slight incompatibilities with some weird stuff here and there, but I think, and we have it on our Discord right now. So as of now, the only incompatibilities are shipbuilder categories, and Tennessee and I have actually found a way to fix that. Exigent circumstances forsaken, we actually got that fixed. And the rest of it so far, I think one of the folks in community went through and basically loaded StarSim up against their entire load order of like 300, 400 mods, and there were 12 that had minor incompatibilities, but things generally worked fine. So I would say right now, ship parts work, but they're unbalanced to StarSim. So I know Tennessee pushed the a patch to return to vanilla. So I think what's working right now is you put the return to vanilla in, and then you can put the ship parts after it, and the parts will be fine. They're just not balanced. We have an experimental system we're currently building that will just dynamically get those parts to work so that it doesn't require patches. We don't want patches. We're going to fix and change StarSim to not need patches. Period. It's a better experience for everybody. I don't want to go and have to go and hunt for 50,000 patches when I'm setting stuff up. So we want StarSim to just work, and we'll make the adjustments on our side to go through and get them to work unless a patch is absolutely required.
So I did see because you mentioned the patches and stuff that like basically kind of refine some things back to vanilla. And something I've kind of seen, and I've mentioned with certain mod authors when it comes to whenever they're adding mods that like kind of make the player, like say for instance, like, you know, like POI mods. I like when we can go into the in-game menu and we can kind of, you know, tweak it to make it, you know, easier for some of us to find. And also because a lot of people love the idea of paid mods, essentially allowing them to run achievements and stuff. But when you start adding patches, because of how Bethesda does stuff, But is there would there potentially be an intention to maybe have like some different settings, like say for instance one that like where you can have it so that it just enables all the gates by default, so that like a player has a more easier time exploring if they don't want the kind of the more just go out there and explore route, or is that something that it's kind of would it be very hard to do considering how the whole thing is set up?
Oh, so that's actually what the 1.09 is about to do. So we're gonna have a game option added in where you can basically say, I don't want to deal with this fog of war stuff. This is too complicated. I'm not interested in it. And you can just turn the entire map on. You can fast travel it where it'll basically return it to vanilla. And now you have the full map open. You can decide to go through the gates. You can cruise mode. You can jump everywhere. So that's one option. We have another option we're working on where it'll be the same option. You just toggle through it, where it'll be the settled systems version, which I think most folks may enjoy more, where it'll show all the UC and Freestar space, but it'll keep the undiscovered territories in Fog of War. So this way you kind of get the best of both worlds. You can see everything, and especially once we put this course plotting system we're building on the network map where it'll tell you the routes, you can get everywhere you need to get. But then you can still go through and travel outside of their territory to see the cool stuff that's not there. You don't know where the Spacer's at. You don't know where Crimson Fleet is at until you explore them. And then you can just leave it default, which is what you're seeing right now. So yeah, we're going to add other game options in. The only one that's really kind of tricky right now is the ship stats. Like changing them at runtime is very difficult. So we'll see. I mean, it's basically an open book. If somebody wants to see something in StarSim, we're going to build it. I'm not sold on anything inside here. So I'm willing to investigate everything because this is a platform I'm expecting to be in for many, many years. And there's always something that can be tweaked to work better. So you convey what you want. I'm going to build it in. If it's something that's feasible within the engine or find a way to make it work. There's some fundamentals, like I'm pretty rigid on we're not deleting the gates. Like it's just a fundamental part of the whole thing. But everything else is fluid, basically, on how we're building this whole thing. So I expect what this is going to be 3 years from now, vastly different than where it is right now.
So follow up on that, because Doc pointed out about how with the new Terran Armada stuff, there's like a way you can essentially have the mod be soft compatible without needing a patch. Are you familiar with that? Sorry, I probably butchered that or that explanation, but are you?
Yeah.
And is that something you're looking to with other, say, paid mods to prevent? Because when, like we said before, when the optional patch comes out, it just kind of makes everything redundant. When it comes to like paid mods, I mean, it's not redundant. You know what I mean? Like if you're buying paid mods for the sole point of wanting to earn achievements, and then you get an optional patch, it makes that kind of
Yeah, so Shattered Space has already done that way, right? So if you go through the Oracle and the Oracle teleports you to the orbit above their planet, this dynamically actually generates that orbit and hooks it into the gate network. So that because we can't depend on Shattered Space directly, we have to do it indirectly. And in fact, that's how the modules have to work, right? Any of the modules we're doing, this is the complexity we walk into right now because we can't build it all into one thing, is and there's good reasons for that too, because we've seen quite a few times, including Watchtower, that the updating system in the Creations Marketplace can actually get you wrong files. So I'm actually happy this is the route we're taking, because what I don't want to have is somebody gets version whatever of Beyond Space, and somehow it downloads 3 versions for some of the files. It's just a mess. So I'd rather keep these all where it's just bug fixes. But any of the modules we're doing, we have to make them standalone. Like if you were to get tentatively we're calling it You Have the Helm. It's going to be autopilot, ship computer. We're doing radio stations so you can kind of listen to music while you're traveling. SSNN broadcast plays while you're in there, and some other stuff. The orbit map we built before is being worked on. That'll come back. You can buy that standalone and it works. It takes whatever vanilla allows and makes that work. But then when it detects Beyond Spaces in there, it turns everything on. So in essence, when we're building all the stuff moving forward, we got to build what happens if somebody just buys this by itself, and what happens when Beyond Space is also there, and have to kind of do both. But what's nice about this route is it's forced us to have to go through and add a lot more things. So for instance, with autopilot, we have to kind of leave breadcrumbs now when you're doing travel, and it allows us to go through and have autopilot jump to everywhere. In the base game, if you had autopilot jump you to places that are in the base places you can visit, you can only go to about 60 spots. But with that system we're having to build, you can go visit places that would usually generate a random space encounter. It leaves a breadcrumb behind, and now the autopilot understands that it can jump to those locations. So it was a neat system we were testing out. But yeah, everything we're doing is indirect, including for Terran Armada, which we got to do a fix for that as well, because I believe there's a mechanism in there where they'll disable your ability to jump out of the system, but the gates continue to work. So we need reactivity to that to shut the gates off to force you to do that based on the way that Bethesda is expressing that feature.
So one of the things I am noticing is that space is obviously different. That was obviously, because it's called, but like with regards to, because I know that you have like anomalies and stuff. I had to Google them. I didn't have enough of a PhD to understand, but so that you're obviously like, you've added like different, like the lighting and stuff to different areas. Is there any kind of, I suppose, is that like a random thing, the way the weather works in like, like on planets, or like is it tied to like, say, like specific suns and like where you are in the system?
So for space, we basically rebuilt all the visuals by down to the root, to the scratch of what is in here right now. So for instance, in vanilla, the colors of the stars doesn't convey when you're inside that system. It's just one standard light. And that's, to us, feels like that's an opportunity to get more interesting colors and stuff. So whatever the classification of a star is, we output that color in the entire system. Then for each of these individual orbits, we've designed these all by hand. So like right now, you're in a asteroid field. So the asteroid field is built from dust as a volume of post-processing effect on the whole thing for the micro dust and microparticles. Then you have more denser clouds are flowing around you as you're moving around, and then you have the asteroids. So every one of these orbits have been built from the ground up. And then as you're traveling, there's not really a rule for, only asteroid fields in a certain system. We've kind of taken about 30 or 40 of these and we just kind of spread them around. There's some theme in some places. Voli, a lot of those have a lot of nebulas you're flying through to get there. Just that's what the designers wanted to do. But generally speaking, what we're going for is, if you're using the network often, we don't want to see the same thing over and over again. So we kind of spread them around over the 300 spots to make it interesting what you're seeing each time you're coming through another gate.
Now, I did see a few people mentioned, and I think I spotted a few times, I don't know if I was just really unlucky, where like I kept getting the same stuff over and over again. Is that a bug, or is that just the kind of, when you're dealing with kind of, because you're saying you kind of spread them out. Is it a random thing, or is it like, if like, say for instance, every time I go to this location, Zosma, will it always be this dark? Like, will it always look like this?
Oh, no, yeah, because right now it's just dark because the star's being blocked. And that's one of the things too, we darkened everything. So when that star rises, I guess you would say, it creates a whole new experience in these orbits because it was darkened somewhat, but not fully, because we had to go and fix some problems with the PlayStation 5 because it would start to like contrast weirdly, and it was only PS5. PS5 has been our nemesis the whole time. So right now it's basically just the star's blocked by the planet. And I think this is an orbit that has nothing in it. It just uses Starfield's normal backdrop because we still see that as an option. There doesn't have to be something in all places. But then as that star finally passes by that planet, the whole colorization of this place will start to pop, kind of like a sunrise, everything like that. So they'll change, but it's changing based on Starfield's only mechanisms. What is placed in each location it's always there. There won't be a different, like you're right now in... I think that's like a magnetic ripple or disruption for the anomaly that's in this orbit. That won't change. It'll stay the same no matter what.
I just noticed there's Varun Zealots here. They're not attacking me. Is it a bug? Or is that intentional?
Did you pick Serpent's Embrace as a trait?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you might have.
I did. Oh, they're friendly. My bad. I apologize. I did notice though when I was playing. Oh, did that character have? I don't know if that. No, it didn't, because I did notice in the stream not yesterday, the stream Tuesday, I was fighting the spacers, and some were hostile, some weren't. That's clearly a bug. Now, is that because I think the thing is obviously in that instance, it was one, and this is what I think why I think it's so fucking cool is I initially was engaging this spacer kind of little flotilla, and then another one kind of got dragged in, but they weren't hostile. Are you aware of instances like that as a bug?
Yeah, this engine, and we're still fighting with it. The engine just does mysterious things sometimes that doesn't even make sense based on what it's supposed to be doing. So sometimes it's like it depends where they're coming from. If it's like an event that's playing out, we've seen the faction is not applied properly until you actually engage them. So it's just clashing systems basically, and they just kind of act weird. The majority of it usually is fine. I think we see most of these issues happening when we're really stressing the entire engine during that first few hours where it's kind of figuring everything out. Once you get past the, you're going to anger a lot of those House Faroon folks that love that stuff.
Apparently they can one-shot me.
Oh, yeah. They hit hard.
I'm not familiar with these. I have to relearn all the classifications of the ships. But we'll reload that. It's a good thing I quick-saved.
But yeah, I think when you get past that first, like we have very intensive systems running that just do weird stuff, but you get past that first few hours where it completes all the ship spawning and the setup, that very eases a lot of things out. When most of the paths have been figured out, because the ships are asking for paths just as much as you are for quests, when those are done, because we save each of those paths because they're expensive, then you're basically down to our turn-based system, which is how our simulation works. Every orbit gets a turn, all the ships in there get updated based on how much time has passed. It's a very relatively cheap system. So when that happens, basically our impact is basically nothing.
Okay, so I just want to ask, because Stephen, you were asking a few times, I apologize. So you did mention, so Stephen's basically wondering about, like, you know, kind of navigating. And now you did mention that you have something in the works that you're essentially going to, like, you know, kind of give people if they don't want that kind of full exploration sort of thing, if they just want to kind of, you know, they want to kind of navigate simpler. But like currently, is there like if you're like say for instance if we spawn, like let's say, right, there's a long loading screen. I don't know if that, you never know if it's Starfield or the mod. I'm gonna blame Starfield, but once it does I might have to restart the game. Have you noticed any kind of, because obviously it's doing voodoo magic to make this work, have you noticed like an increase in kind of loading when it comes to like playing this on console? I know you mentioned PlayStation is a bit of a bane, but like in regards to, oh, never mind, we got it. So is that something that you like, is that the mod, would you think, or is that just the game could be a bit, you know, the increased loading time?
Yeah, it's probably just, I noticed in Starfield it doesn't do well when you load when the game was already running, because it just does weird stuff in space. So it seems to take a lot more effort to figure stuff out. But we haven't seen anything major. Like that was actually one of the things we had to fix pretty quickly, because there's a lot of issues in the back end of Starfield currently. The ref handles thing has been talked ad nauseum. It's a major problem that all of us have to deal with. And one of the things that we were seeing, and it was actually a problem, it's another thing like it was with Mining Conglomerate with the load times, was we have 200, 300 ships and stations kind of total, and we had them as dynamic before, where they were just, you design them in the shipbuilder on the creation kit, and then that's it. And the problem is, with the way they have this engine set up, it has to basically build all those when you first start the game up or load a file. And on console, it was taking 5 or 10 minutes. It's a residual problem, just like the Mining Conglomerate issue. And then when we went through and blueprinted them, where it's kind of the thing that Bethesda did, where you sort of generate all the information about the ship and then you embed it into your file, the problem went away. We went from, I think it was a bit over 1 million ref handles down to 97,000 when that was done. The load times were basically identical, other than a few quirks here and there, and the frame rate jumped almost 10 just from making that adjustment. So it's weird stuff in this engine, and trying to figure out where the borders are, you know, the boundaries of how this thing functioned. It's been a ride.
So I do want to, again, sorry, Stephen, we're getting there, don't worry. I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to seem rude. But just for, and I know this is probably a bit of it because, right, I'm here now, okay? Is there any way you could explain to me if I wanted to get to Jemison Alpha Centauri? Is there like an easy way to do this, or like a way that you know, like would kind of make me better understand for people that might not, you know, like.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you're going about this and you wanted to keep Fog of War on, so when you're reading this map, it's a 2D grid. So you're currently in, I think, what, Copernicus,
Yeah,
I believe.
I'm over here. Yep. I think I'm in Zosma.
Zosma. Okay. And then Jemison, I think, is over there on the kind of the mid right, left of the map.
Yep.
Let's see. So when you read this as a grid and you're kind of giving yourself an idea of where you need to go. So I don't know the contours of the map. It's not just all things are next to each other. It's designed out. But generally speaking, I can sit there and look at this and go, okay, Jemison is 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and however many that is here. I'm not great at math right now after all the code we're doing.
That's
like
4,
10
yeah,
or 12 to the left.
Yeah.
So now the problem I'm going to run into with this current build is you can't really easily determine direction. You can imply it by looking at this map. I can look at this map and go, Zosma has only 3 gates, one to the east, one to the west, and one to the south. So if I'm in that orbit and I'm looking around and I look in a direction where there isn't a gate, then I can now say, okay, cool. That means that this gate behind me is south. We are putting directions into the gate, which will be part of 1.09. But that's the general premise of how to read this and go, cool, I need to go south 4 and west 12, for lack of a better, for the numbers here.
I'll just do that real quick while you talk about it. But and again, I like once you're looking at it from the grid kind of point of view. Now, I'm assuming each one of those grids isn't necessarily going to have a system, or will it have not a system, but like a location? You get what I'm saying? Like, sorry, I say this as I walk away from it, so now you have no reference point. But like, say for instance, let me go back. I apologize.
Yeah.
Hold on now. All right. So, like, let's say for instance, see how, like you're saying, it's like 11 across. Like, is every one of these going to be filled with a gate?
Yes. Oh, everything on the network.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Okay, that's okay. All right, so yeah, so then, okay, now I get it more. See, because for some reason, I had associated these gates as Mass Effect relays from Mass Effect, in that they're just used to jump between systems when they do both. And I think I mentioned it a little bit, but some of these gates are obviously going, like, if we look over here, the one that... Mars, Deimos, Phobos, some of them obviously will go to different planets in the system. Just to kind of recap, you did mention that you're going to be making it so that you can kind of see whether the gates are north, south, east, and west. You're going to kind of change that. He mentioned, Lee, that originally it had quite high, but they did the blueprinting, and what did you say the pointer limit was? It was like, was it 10K or something?
97,000.
Oh, 97,000. Okay, sorry. It was, you said it was like over 1 million, which is kind of crazy. Hopefully Bethesda can get that sorted so that it going forward. But anyway, but yeah, so with regards to trying to determine like the difference between the gates that are used to bring you to different systems versus the gates that bring you, is there any are you guys working on something like that? Obviously the north, like adding the different like locations, north, south, east, west, will help. But for people that might not be, like, let's say, because like when I was playing through Tuesday, that was kind of, I was going at it the complete wrong way, because obviously I went in kind of how I usually do, big-headed. But yeah, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that is there a way you could differentiate the gates that take you to different systems versus the gates that take you? Because I know after saying that, I know that you did explain that, like, each one is going to be a grid. So in saying that, and I probably just answered my question, there's no way, like, will there be a situation where you could go through a gate and it could move you more than one grid, or is it always going to be one grid at a time?
Okay, so I'll go through the two parts here. So the first part with the grids, technically yes. So we have the map up on our website, and then once we do that game object, you can see the map. Just because we wanted to kind of like spread this map out and give like different regions within it. So you can have situations, especially like in the northwest of the map, where you might hop for spots on the grid to get to another place because they're not directly next to each other in terms of actual positions on the grid itself. So when I was talking before about going down 4 into the left 12, it's not a perfect science because it may in fact only be 8 to the left because at some point it just hops you 4. In terms of being able to recognize a system boundary or not, we're working on 3 systems right now because system boundaries are important in that you're able to do like a system hop, which is what Sarah does pretty often. So if you can recognize and see on the map where the systems are, then you're able to basically say, cool, I'm trying to get to Alpha Centauri. I'm currently in Narian. I have to get through 3 systems to get there for the quickest route, according to the network itself. So, and we hint at this with the first objective saying, cruise mode over to Sumati because Sumati is adjacent to the Altair system. So in essence, when you're doing that, you go, okay, I can recognize that Crete is a system border that goes into Ursa Minor. I can recognize that Sumati is a system border that goes into Altair, and I can recognize that Polvo is I believe, I forget the map right now, but is a border to Cheyenne. So I can then see these and go, cool, I cruise mode to one of these ones, then I go through the gate, which would be marked if we can. There's some issues we're running into right now. That is a system gate. At the very least, what we're going to be doing is we'll go and color code and have things on the network map that clearly defines system borders. So if we can't do it in the name of the gate, you can look at the network map and say, hey, I know that the west gate is going to be the one that goes to a new system, and then it'll specifically say in the game, west gate, Altair 2. For instance. What we also want to do is in cruise mode, we want to have some identifier when you're in the cruise mode or in the star system map like you're in right now, that the network's name for those orbits will specifically say that they are a system border. So that's kind of the 3 things we're trying to get to be able to still utilize the system. This is entirely for the player. There would be nothing. Oh, there you go. Initialization ended. They're entirely for the player to be able to navigate through here a lot quicker when we get these all in, hopefully over the weekend.
Okay, no, because I'm just to because that was one thing I want to ask. I also want to point out, I will say initially, because I'm just talking to the chat now, because the chat is like, because obviously some people are, going to be coming at this from more kind of novice than say, they're not familiar with like X4 and stuff like that, so they're just kind of looking to kind of get there as quick as possible. So essentially, what layman's terms, you're just moving like it's like a chessboard. Essentially, you're moving. Obviously, that's probably a bad analogy, but yeah, I'm going to be trying to simulate that to show you guys all the time of things. But going back to going back to the kind of the initialization, because one of the things it says is that it takes kind of 1 to 2 hours to kind of do the simulation. When you first install the mod. Is that just your first install, or will that be like every time you load the game?
First install,
okay.
Not every loads. Once that's done, it's done.
And like what specifically, like, can anything go wrong between like say like in that hour or so? Can anything go wrong, or is it like just a kind of, it's all background stuff, you won't see any effects to it?
It shouldn't really matter. Like if something, it's basically the bulk of that, and why it takes a few hours is spawning all the ships. So 300 orbits, spreading all the ships out, getting them all set up, getting the station set up. So that first 5 minutes when you're playing, we're taking care of all the stuff that the player needs to go through gates, to load the map up, stuff like that. That's a lot quicker. Then everything else past that is all the ships. Spawning in, setting them up, giving them jobs to do so that the simulation can now work. And then when that's done, everything's really just a ship is requesting a job to do, it's provided a job, it needs a path to get to different locations, and the simulation's updating in turn-based all the orbits over and over.
So just to add to what you were saying earlier, so right now I'm just going to explain this to chat, and hopefully you can correct me wrong. So like they were saying, like Vaernus was saying, I want to get to civilized space. So let's say, for instance, Crete's under control of the. Oh yeah, because I always associate. I always assume Crete's where Crix is. It's not. So I know that I basically need to go down and I need to go left or down or south and west. West? Yes, west. Now I know that if I zoom out, I already came through the Copernicus gate, Copernicus 4 gate. So when I go back in, I can go through either of the gates that's not that gate. Obviously, you said you will be making some adjustments to make it easier to kind of know which gates you're going through. So, for instance, where's the Copernicus 4 gate? So there's a minor one. We can go through that one, and that'll move us to it. So we're going to go through this one. That brings us to the star. So we're going to go... So just to confirm, those lines mean there should be 3 gates around me now, correct?
Right.
Okay, cool. So we're going to go through this one real quick, and then we'll kind of... So there is a lot of, like, it's daunting, like, I'm not going to lie, but then any sort of sim game is going to be daunting. Like, X4 is crazy. I mean, X4 is so daunting that I had a friend basically explain how to automate a load of stuff, so I just kind of enjoyed the ride, because I was like, I don't understand the game, but I do understand now because I've kind of played it a lot. But, like, for anybody that's not familiar... Like, you're essentially, like, Stargate... Well, that's not... Never mind. I was going to say Stargate, but Stargate wouldn't make sense because you usually only go through 1 or 2 gates. So now we're here, and I'm going to jump out. Obviously, you said before, kind of... You said before that this, like, system and stuff, and I think I asked, like, is there any way to make it so that the player can access this while in the cockpit?
We're investigating. So we found something out actually yesterday, and Kingath and I talk quite a bit as well. So we tend to be trying to figure all this stuff to break the engine. We may have a pathway, but it's very tricky because the pathway that exists in Starfield isn't as strong as it was in Fallout 4. Sim Settlements 2 and Sim Settlements 1, the reason they worked is because there's sort of a hack that lets you send information into the HUD. That hack exists in Starfield, but does not work when you're piloting a ship, which is a kind of a big problem for us since that's all we do here. So we're trying to find what we can change. Most of the stuff, and the reason why we designed it like this and then the orbit map, is because this is basically all we have left, and don't want to put it in a terminal. If we do find a way to put it in the HUD, we're going to put it in the HUD and just make it much easier to access these systems.
So I just noticed here now, I want to get back to that in a minute because I have a good question for that. But so we have now arrived in this place, Copernicus Minor 1A or IA. Now, there's only one line. Does that mean that we would essentially need to backtrack because there's only going to be one gate here? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And the reason we do this is because when we start doing economy and stuff, and this is one of the benefits of exploring, you can start to look around and go, where do I want to put my headquarters when I start doing my own corporation or set up my own stations down the road? You could start planning a lot of that stuff out now and kind of look at good spots that are, not likely for somebody to attack you there, that you can easily defend. This is perfect because you can eventually go and place down one of those orbital weapons platforms right there by the gate to bottleneck anybody attacking your place and build out a bunch of your property right there. So these are good to have, these little like one entrance places that are very easy for you to defend if you want to kind of go off and have your own personal orbit to control. And then you could even build your outpost on here as well, and we're going to have functionality in the future that lets you hook your outposts and have their output and pulling stuff in. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting when we get these features all kind of hooked in.
So really quick, so Stephen, are you kind of understanding a little bit better now? And also side bug I remembered. I went through a gate on stream and it didn't do anything. Are you guys aware of that bug?
Yeah, I've noticed it happens very rarely where the trigger basically gets stuck and then it'll just either react to it a little whiles after. It's just a weird quirk where if stuff's happening too much, then their own triggers just won't fire off. Now, if it happens, if you find a gate like that and it just happens all the time, it could also be that it's human error. I mean, we put our designers through putting this thing together, and it was quite a bit. So we've had scenarios where maybe a gate's not fully set up correctly. We flew through all of them, so they should be good. So it's usually going to be just some kind of like engine problem that tends to go away.
With regards to like the Bethesda stuff, and I don't know how much you're going to be able to say this because, or how much you're going to be able to ask, respond to, but given the fact that you've said quite a few, you've said like how you've kind of made their engine do things it wasn't supposed to, and Bethesda's kind of like whoa, and that's something. There's been kind of other instances I've seen with mod authors. Like one of the greatest kind of examples is mod authors kind of begging Bethesda to kind of implement certain features. Is like obviously, look, I know you're not trying to you're not like trying to kind of have a them versus us, but it's obvious like teams like yourself and also teams like King Gath, like you're kind of looking at it from a kind of a different perspective. You're not like an individual. Ooh, that's really cool. Hopefully it doesn't stick because it did last time. But like sorry. I guess what I'm trying to ask is when it comes to like if you say to Bethesda, like say for instance the hack you were talking about, where you could get things display on the hood. Like, have Bethesda been somewhat like open to like, let's say, changing things to help with that sort of stuff? Or is it kind of like, unless it's like a major need, they're like it's kind of up to you guys to figure out how to fix it?
So what I could convey without getting in trouble with an NDA is that Bethesda's always looking for feedback and information for everybody kind of thing. But they just got hit pretty hard with layoffs. So the likelihood of anything that's been requested from anybody, whether it's through the VC program or not, is pretty far in the future. So we work from the assumption that we've got to find a solution with what's existing right now for everything that we do. And the way the program works now, if something down the road happens to come through, fantastic. We'll go through and incorporate it in, but it's not likely we would see them in a short time frame.
Okay, because that I will say, as a like a user of the game, I could see the benefit of Bethesda kind of implementing stuff. Because like I know one thing, I remember I was talking to King Gath about like say for instance the fleet system. And how they had to kind of like they had to kind of go with how the system works. Like one of the things I think a lot of us would like to have is like think of like I'm trying to think of some games like like a Mass Effect style, or one of the good ones is like I don't know if you played Rogue Trader, but like you can assign your crew to specific ones and you have your own menu. Obviously you can't do that currently because of how Bethesda does it, so it would be awesome to kind of see. But oh fuck, I did not realize that's what Crix is. Oh shit! Sorry. I went back. So, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of point that out there. Bethesda, please give these people assistance in making the game better. A couple of other questions I wanted. Sorry, I'm just reading through some stuff. Someone asked a question, and I'm not going to ask it in the way it is, but I'm going to spin it. Which do you prefer, Argonians or Khajiits?
Khajiits.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. That's no problem. No love for the lizard people. I see how it is. If you want to ask questions, you can face. But if you you're jumping in later. So one thing I was trying to do, but I think I ran into a slight problem. Is I obviously want to go down, but going down brings me to Crete. Not Crete. What's it? Crix. So in vanilla Starfield, if you jump into Crix and you're not aware, you will die pretty quickly. Now, I didn't have enough time to respond. Have you kind of changed it so that doesn't happen, so players can kind of navigate through there? Because I know that's one of the problems even in the vanilla game. If you don't have like a big enough grav drive, you get in situations where you have to jump into Crix, put it all to boost and shields, and just run for the hills. Like, have you moved that kind of station backwards so that it's not like immediately in your sight line?
Well, where you're coming into Crimson Fleet's territory, they have about, I think it's like 12 or 13 network orbits. So that area you can probably kind of sneak through. You might make it as long as there's no carrier, which I saw in your last stream. You run into, I think, 3 carriers.
Oh yeah, that didn't end well.
Bad luck. Yeah. But generally speaking, you should be able to, as long as you learn this stuff, that coming in here is dangerous. But if you can find that pathway that can sneak through, then it's actually kind of a a shortcut to get to some of the more eastern parts of our network, which has some nice derelicts and stuff like that. Now it's dangerous because you run into that carrier and you're not prepared. That's kind of it. But
So with regards to the Super Cruise, because that's something you mentioned, and never mind, we'll talk about it. I was gonna say, actually, I can probably do that. Hold on, now I get Super Cruise, right? Oh, that never mind, vanilla. But I could see over there. This gate is going to take me to Max, but Max is also. If I actually bring up the scanner, Max is over. Where is Max? Oh my God, there's a lot of gates. Okay, okay. So, when I initially asked you about like, is there only a max of 4 gates? Or maybe I didn't ask that when I was, when I was referring to the arrows, north, south, east, and west. In a situation like this, how is the player like to determine which is the one they need to go through? Considering like when I don't know if I'm gonna die here, but let me just really quickly jump out of my chair. Like, when I look at the map, there's the 4 directions. How do I know which one is the direction? Like, which gate is... Like, obviously, you said you'll be changing some stuff, like, with that. Because currently, there's only, like, 3. Am I going to be looking for gates that don't tie in with planets in this system? Or...
well, no. Every network orbit in Crimson Fleet will be attached to a planet or a moon. So it's luck of the draw. When you enter a hostile territory, in the case of Crimson Fleet, you're hoping you pick the direction that is not towards the key and is away from the key. So that's part of the I guess the danger of exploration, is that you don't know when you're in these unclaimed territories or off the beaten path what you're going to find in those orbits. And we have a lot of stuff in these places, and that's not even including what could happen if you're entering an orbit that, spacers are in the middle of a raid and you just run into a large fleet, of which Sarah directly ran into before, where it was like a carrier, a frigate, a few corvettes, and a bunch of fighters, and then the wing was sent up by the carrier, and here she is in the frontier. So that's just the danger, I think, when you're exploring, that you don't know what you're going to find in certain places. Now, in your case, you're kind of lucky because it's just 3 random pirate ships that happen to be flying. Well, it's like 4. But if a carrier comes in here, or if a carrier just did, I start to see a little more ships, then yeah, it's going to be a situation where you got to get out of here.
I'd say I think I'm just sitting duck there. Regarding to what Paul earlier, I don't know if you were watching, but we were in Phobos, so in UC space, and a bunch of Crimson Fleet jumped in. And I want to kind of again clarify on that a little bit more, because you mentioned how like if they're let's say for instance if there's a system that or a gate that kind of neighbors another gate, and let's say one of them is UC, one of them is Crimson Fleet, the Crimson Fleet can launch raids on the UC territory. That's correct, yes? That's what you said earlier? Or am I mistaken?
Yes.
Okay.
So the key will send out raids every so often. I forget the time frame we have in there, but it can be like every few days in game.
Because someone did ask, like, because that is obviously something with some sim games is, can 2 factions vie for control of an uncontested sector? Or like, is that not something you're kind of, that's not the scope of what you're hoping for?
Not yet.
Okay.
And we'll leave it at that. It is something we are building in, though, in terms of like I just saw the war sim. So diplomacy and control of orbits, including your own, is something that we're working towards. Our priorities right now are get the problems fixed in Beyond Space right now, so folks can navigate here no problem, and then get the ship parts problem and compatibility. And then when we're comfortable with it and the community is comfortable with it, then I can now go back into autopilot first, get that in. Then we're doing the full economy, because we kind of need that to give you more access to things. And you kind of need the economy to build your own fleet in the future anyway. And then we're going full force in the war module. And from what we have in the feature list on here, when those 3 are out, we're basically 1-to-1 matching the best features in the main StarSims. And then it's kind of what the community would like to see past that point. We have a lot of other cool concepts, but it's going to be an open book for the stuff that people want to add into it.
I am noticing another long loading screen, which makes me think that it might potentially be the mod. Just to let you know where. I'm not 100% because I'm on Xbox, so I can't test for sure. But just to make you aware. But also, Paul was like saying about like he was playing for 2 hours, didn't see anything. With because you mentioned how like there's like kind of a timer that like send or makes things happen. Like, is it? I mean, is it kind of? Oh, there we go. Is it going to be like kind of vanilla Starfield RNG sort of stuff where, you know, nothing may happen, something may happen, you just kind of have to wait and see? Like, nothing is like a guarantee, or is there... Because I know you did say, like, if you want combat, just go to... Obviously, you want combat, just go to where I am, clearly. But, like, is there any, like, aside from that location, because some people are asking about, like, the war sort of stuff, and I know you said, like, there is going to be, like, a separate, you know... a separate element or a separate module, but like currently with the current kind of like what you're doing, would you potentially, like, is there any chance of you adding kind of, let's say, like, you know, like how in Elite Dangerous there's like conflict zones? Is that something we might see? Obviously with ooh, that's quite cool. There's like small little... Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, this is not safe either, I apologize. But yeah, basically, I guess what I'm asking is, while the combat module is going to be combat heavy, is there anything in the game currently that can kind of, you can get your fix? Or is it just like, you know, is it just kind of search out the kind of the vanilla areas, unless you want to, you know, wage war with the UC and stuff?
Yeah, so it's a tough one to answer because we don't know how the simulation is going to convey itself in every playthrough. We start all the stations completely different. We spawn the ships differently. So it's the only guarantees in the way that the system is set up is that pirates, the Crimson Fleet, will send raids out every, I think it's 2 or 3 in-game days. Spacers will send out a raid to somewhere every 2 to 3 days. And it's not a matter of them necessarily attacking UC in Freestar space. They will attack Ecliptic. Ecliptic owns about 3 or 4 orbits for their little area they control. They'll attack House Vaernus territory. So you might be doing a bunch of quests in UC and Freestar and not see those attacks because they just chose not to attack that place. You're almost guaranteed to see spacer attacks happen pretty often because spacers, when they're patrolling between their owned areas, will have like one spacer orbit just standing on its own in the periphery of the entire network, and then they're designed to then move to another spacer orbit, which could be the opposite side of the map, which then causes that patrol to fly through UC and Freestar space. If you're looking for combat, then you have those hotspots at the territory boundaries. So it's the territories are what's important, not the systems, because the territories on the edges, Crete, right next to the unclaimed space, is absolutely going to be a hotspot pretty often when spacers and Crimson Fleet decide to attack. Trying to think other ones. The Den, you know, any places we generally have placed down an orbital weapons platform, we put those down because they tend to get attacked pretty often, and that allows the Freestar and UC to protect their freighters until the military patrols come in there to actually take out whatever's in those places. Oh, you found a carrier.
I'm just keep it on. I realized that I went the wrong way, so I'm trying to go the other way. These 3 gates, because I know that where I jumped in, are these the 3 gates that are going to go north or south, west, and east?
They should, yes.
Okay. Hopefully this one is probably going to send me to talk to me a little bit about like the module stuff going forward, because you mentioned obviously like you're trying to, you know, sort out the kind of the kinks currently and get kind of everyone kind of get it to a point where like people are more kind of, you know, more comfortable with certain things. You mentioned the modules and stuff, and obviously with regards to, am I safe? Did she follow me? That ironically, I'm assuming you're aware of the meme of the meme. It has become a bit of a meme of the character kind of repeating the same lines. Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. We're turning around. Are you aware of the voice lines repeating? Is that something you're going to be able to fix?
Yeah, we might actually turn them off. That's the only way that they're giving us as an option in the engine is just turn those lines off because it's like a hard-coded. It's because of the systems clashing, right? There's not a lot of space combat, so when you go to these encounters, it's usually a random encounter where either the ships were already there or they spawn in like one ship. And so it's just hard-coded in the dialogue where every single time a ship enters, they play their greeting voice line by default. So likely what's going to have to happen here is we're going to say, just nix the whole line because it gets when there's 2 or 3 carriers in some of our testing and it's playing that 30 40 times, it's not fun. Yeah, well, we have a fix for it, but it's likely going to be just turn that off. I don't think it's necessary anyway.
The thing is, with regards to the only other thing I noticed, and hopefully that's can be sorted, is like with the different POIs and stuff. Like I was talking to a spacer because you know the way again this is a vanilla thing. There was like a space station that was owned by the spacers, and when I tried to talk to it, it was giving Crimson Fleet lines. And then some space stations would be owned by spacers, but they would have the UC flag. I'm guessing, or the logo. I'm guessing that's because you were just kind of like repurposing assets for the POI. Oh my god, I'm not going to make it there. I don't. Yeah, I know this is not going to end. But yeah, is that something that you guys could fix, or is that again a game kind of limitation with like with certain like factions kind of having the wrong voice lines and because you know like when we look at the Crimson Fleet stuff, they have the little Crimson Fleet logo to the left of the see the way it's under them. There was like some spacer ones I was checking out, and it was like saying that it was owned by the Freestar Collective.
Gotcha. That's probably a bug. That might be something where we put the wrong faction on a ship, and so it didn't properly apply the right voice type on those. So when those happen, it's probably just something where, you know, we just put the wrong information on there, and we'll have to tweak those when they come up every so often.
Okay, that very annoyed me there, that I was so close, and then they cut my engines, and I'm like, God damn it, Bethesda. Not Bethesda, but yeah, okay. So, just want to go through some other things. Oh yeah, sorry. So we were talking about like the modules and stuff, and like, so once you've I don't know how we got tangent. I have a habit of doing that. I kind of spin away. So if we kind of look back at like say like we use mining conglomerate as a kind of as an example, like if the kind of the actor strike hadn't happened and stuff, like what's the, because I know you said with StarSim like it's not something like you want to keep doing this, like it's not something where you just like, okay, we've got 2 expansions or 2 updates or 2 modules and that's it. But with regards to like say like mining conglomerate, what's the kind of the development process like it takes for each module, and like how long between, like once like with like I suppose I'm using mining conglomerate because obviously that you had obviously planned to add stuff in, and you did add them in, and there's still a few more bits and bobs to come, but that was kind of dampened by that kind of, you know, the voice actor strike. Like once you guys sort out the kind of the initial teething issues, how long until we expect the next module, if that makes sense?
So depending on how quickly we get through these current fixes, we want to have all 3 of those modules out by, we were trying to aim for the end of the year, but that's going to be very tight.
Oh, that's actually a lot quicker than I was expecting, to be honest with you, even at an estimate. I was expecting a lot more.
The problem is it's hard for us to give a timeline because of how long QA can take. I mean, it was 6 months, and literally we were 6 months in QA, like Bethesda QA for StarSim. So it was a lot of back and forth, random things broken that we just don't have the knowledge to look for certain things where they're much more knowledgeable about their game. And it's just obscure stuff with how StarSim interacted with Starfield. Prime example, we built this whole thing around you're going to be in a ship that you're piloting yourself. And then you throw the curveball in the Crimson Fleet storyline where the Jade Swan picks you up and takes you to that military base. Well, that caused all kinds of problems because you're not actually piloting your ship. The ship is flying you to there, and it broke everything. So we had to find a way to solve those problems. And so it was a lot of like certain quests would break, certain things would break just randomly that we had to go then build fixes in to make them work. But timeline-wise, it's tough because we could submit the stuff a month from now, 2 months now, 3 months from now, and it takes 2-3 months in QA to complete. But I would like all three of those modules out by, say, Q1, Q2 of next year at the latest. I want the foundation of a space sim together to use as a baseline. Now, in terms of how Mining Conglomerate fits into it, I could see that as a very long project, because we kind of see Mining Conglomerate being pulled back into StarSim and kind of us proving ourselves from a narrative standpoint, which is what's missing right now in Mining Conglomerate, the whole Argos and Deimos storyline that we're building out. So that's going to take a while, because now we can do voice acting. Get the voice acting done to our standards, build the story out, get that integrated, make sure it works properly with what's in StarSim now. Could easily be 8 months to a year to build all that stuff out. So, we'll have a team probably working on that while we're also working on each of the new things we're doing within StarSim proper, all the pieces of it that we're building.
So with regards, sorry, I'm just trying to navigate without getting blasted. With regards to the modules and stuff, are they going to be just add-ons to this current like content? Like, if I buy this now, will I get access to them, or will they be other purchases, like when they come around, like the combat stuff and like the economy?
Right, they're going to be all separate. We're not able to actually build them into this one here. So, and that's part of a lot of the guidance we got as well, where some folks just don't want certain things. So they're not going to be priced. This is 10 because of just how complicated this was and what it adds to the game itself. Everything else we're building is going to be way less than that. I don't know the prices. Pricing is always difficult because value is different for each person. But if I were to throw pricing out, autopilot, 100 or 200 credits. I mean, it's not remotely to the scale of something like this. Gazillionaire, which is the economy module, 200, 300, and then we're going to work with Bethesda to have basically a perpetual bundle that keeps the price down. So it's not like you're getting nickel and dime by stuff over time. If we launch anything past those four, it needs to justify itself as being effectively either continuation of development of features or DLC for what we're building to ourselves. With the content to stand on its own merits, because we can't do dependencies, so each of these need to work on their own completely.
I was just actually going to ask you that about the autopilot and stuff. Like, they're going to be standalone.
Yes, they're required in the program. So when we do Gazillionaire, which is focused on economy and running your own corporation, all that stuff, it's going to have a storyline about you running a corporation and learning all the mechanics and stuff, whether Beyond Space is installed or not. And it's a fully featured storyline for that whole thing. And you'll be able to go and do transactions with stations that we've built just for the vanilla version of it. But then when Beyond Space is in there, now you're able to actually place your own headquarters, as well as some other concepts we have, and run your own personal corporation versus helping somebody else. So they'll all be fully featured, completely standalone, and then they'll have that hook that snaps into, now they can access the gate network. Now you can go and transact with all these stations that are in here. Now you can plop down a headquarters and start managing your entire fleet, and do whatever you want as your super corporation. So that's been our premise for kind of how we're going to approach all the other development.
And so with regards to that, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna hopefully oh no, I can't stand. Oh, maybe they won't kill me. They'll probably kill me. So with that being said, so now that people are aware, so if you want the combat sort of stuff, if you want to be able to kind of, because in the, hold on, let me just pull up the, hold on now, creations. So you mentioned you can explore the network, protect freighters to shape the space economy, join military fleets. Is all of this, how much of this is in StarSim currently? Because I suppose, because I'm a bit confused on, because when you said the combat module, I assume that was going to be the, join military fleets. Is that what that's entailing, or is that separate to the join military fleets?
So this is all in right now, but what the expression of it in Beyond Space is taking what Bethesda has built into Starfield and expanding and making those features actually useful. So when we say join military fleets, it's more of, you see an actual military fleet moving about, engaging another military fleet, and you decide, do you want to protect, expand, help them out with what they're doing. It's all indirect. It's just using those features. It's basically, do you choose when you arrive into an orbit to blow up an opposite fleet because you hate the Crimson Fleet, or just go on your way and do something else? Now, what it did convey in terms of the features that are in Starfield is piracy, smuggling. Those are pretty much 100% in. I don't see any future modules necessary for those other than tweaks. So it really depended on what exists within Starfield now that we were able to go through and make it have much more purpose. A good example of this that's not necessarily in that description is ship stealth. It's used one time during the beginning of the Old Neighborhood storyline, and you don't even have to even use it, and then never used or talked about ever again in the entire storyline. Now, how does that matter? Well, contraband scans are not automatic when you're playing in StarSim. There's a security ship that actually patrols. It picks any ship, including AI. It can scan them and actually find contraband and go hostile with them. So it has to pick you. Now, if you stealth, they can't find you. And actually, this mechanism exists in the base game. Ships can't detect you if you're stealthing within 10 kilometers, basically. And so that could be something that actually is more useful if you're playing as a smuggler or a pirate, to not be caught by certain things as you're trying to sneak through certain areas. The dialogue for ships. Previously, you only used it if you lucked into randomly going to a planet that happened to have a civilian ship there. That's it. Now it's hugely useful. If you're being a pirate, you have a lot of options in front of you. You have a freighter that's floating around in Ursa Minor, and you go, cool, I'm a friendly pirate. I don't really want to kill anybody. So we can just go and do the dialogue with that ship and say, drop your cargo. And then Bethesda actually built this whole mini game that runs in the background to determine whether that ship believes you or just says, go screw yourself, and then fights you whenever you try to have them jettison their cargo. And then you'd blow them up. Or you EMP them, and then you board and you kill them all, and you get the ship and you get the cargo. Now, in base game, you really couldn't pirate because there was so limited amount of opportunities to go through and do anything. Now there's going to be freighters going and flying all over the place. And if you can understand the economy and understand, what stations produce certain things that are worth quite a bit of money, then you can go through and make a lot of credits by being a pirate, by just indirectly looking at, okay, that ship just went and landed at the station that builds capital ship weapons. They're probably pretty expensive, hundreds of thousands of credits. So, oh, that ship is stupid. It just went and flew into Ursa Minor without an escort. It's mine now. And then you can sit there and either tell them, give me all your stuff, or you can say, take them out, take the ship yourself and the cargo, or blow them up and then get whatever's left in there as well. And those things are kind of expressed because of the way that we set this whole thing up to make these features actually work a lot more than what they were in the base game, because there just wasn't enough content to utilize them.
I definitely agree with that. Like, there's a lot of really cool situation locations, and even like you said, the stealth stuff. Like, it's crazy that Bethesda showcased it, and then like there's never really a situation to use it. Now because you did. Where am I? So you did mention and stuff. So that functions like and stuff in game. Like if I power, like in this situation, can I power down now, or they've already seen me?
That's unclear. I guess we could find out right now.
All right.
I never actually used the feature because I forgot it even existed. One of our QA testers is like, hey, there's stealth. I'm like, oh, okay. So you got to turn off everything. The way that the engine's set up, it looks at is all systems off. And then as long as you are a max of 2 in your engines only, theoretically the whole system comes on. As long as they're not within 10 kilometers, they won't detect you. And I think that's the case. So you see now, because you turn that on, they don't show up on the HUD anymore because they can't find you. But it's weird.
Oh, they've now grouped into 10K. They run. But that is quite cool. I didn't realize that was like, again, like you said, like I used it once and I was like, oh, okay. Because I thought it was going to be like Elite Dangerous's silent running, I think it's called. Where like if you can coast in when you have a bounty and stuff, and like basically stuff like that. But that's actually sick. That will help in situations where like it would have prevented me from dying a lot. Is there any intent to, like, when it comes to stuff like that, because you're aware Bethesda added those whole new like kind of ship stuff, the invisible thing that just crashes if you have a big ship. But there's, you know the ones I've talked about, like the equipment they added with Terran Armada. Is there? I mean, you may have changed them. I don't know. But is there any not ideas? Like, do you have any intentions to maybe make it easier for people to? What the fuck is going on? I can't see. Oh, there we go. I think it might have been because I had my engine on. Like, do you have any, like, intentions to make it easier to stealth, like any kind of modules or something? Or do you kind of want to, like, kind of steer away from, like, kind of, you know, tweaking the vanilla stuff too much?
It's tough because, like, the only thing I could possibly think of is the cloaking. But cloaking kills your frame rate with the way it's set up.
Yes, it does.
It's a problem we ran into a long time ago, too. We had built a cloaking mechanism as equipment you can add into StarSim, and their mechanism is the same as what's on the Starborn Guardians, but it only works because the Guardian is one piece. So when they apply that on the Guardian, it's basically nothing. When you're dealing with these ships that are made from parts, it's like hundreds to thousands of pieces for the outside of the ship itself, and it's applying that cloaking on all of them, and then the frame rate just plummets. So it's a tough one because they don't give us any access. This ship stealth system just exists. There's no mechanism to tell you, like, when you're on the planet that you're actually being detected or not. Like, it's just a thing that they built and then forgot about. It's so, like, I don't know. It's one of many features that we were digging through when we were building this that were like, this is a cool feature. What happened with it? And it was just never utilized again. So that's the part. Like, if we could find ways to make that more useful, and it is going to be more useful. Like, for instance, there's in this version right now, the ship scanners that are done, or the security, will still detect you whether you do security or not. However, in 1.09, we made a tweak that if you were to stealth going through the gate, the security ships cannot detect you whatsoever. So if you were trying to, like, slowly sneak through with a bunch of contraband to make a bunch of money, I could see that being a pathway. Me personally, I just go and boost because they can't scan you until you're within 2 kilometers. So I just boost and then get away from them. It's very situational for the ship stealth to be useful. But we had a few QA testers that used it all the time, and as long as you stayed away from the 10 kilometers, I could see it being useful maybe in, like, what you're dealing with right now, as long as they haven't detected you first.
Oh, it's only engine based, or it's only so I can have full pips in engine, and they don't see me. That's cool. I don't know if that's hopefully that's not a bug. Again, I've never.
That works.
Yeah, no, it definitely does, because I don't have to crawl. I'm just still trying to navigate. I will say I want to go there, but how the fuck do I get there? I'm getting there. I know what I'm doing, but so with regards to stuff like that, because I think one of the things I will say is, I think from the trailer and obviously from the description and stuff, it's clear that, like, you know, well, I'm getting there. I think. Let's go down. Go back to the key gamma, or I have to go to the key alpha. Okay, key alpha or key gamma. Sorry. So, like, with regards to kind of, because we talk about the modules and stuff, and I, myself included, kind of assumed that they were going to be kind of add-ons to this, but obviously they're not. So, like, as far as updates and stuff to this, and I apologize if you kind of mentioned it before, what are things, like, you're currently, like, thinking about, like, adding into this? Or is it, like, because I know you said, like, you're working on the bug fixes currently and stuff like that. After that, like, is it a case of you have some ideas, or because you mentioned how, like, you're going to essentially be hopefully getting all of the other modules out, you know, like the autopilot and stuff like that. But, like, for people that, oh yep, they see me now. For people that, like, let's say for instance, if they're buying this, like, should they expect, like, extra things added on, or, like, for the most part, is it feature complete?
Well, like I said before, with the space sims, when they're 8 years or more, I think, so Beyond Space will always house the core simulation, and I think there's always opportunities to build the simulation out. So I do see us building stuff into this over time to add more things into how the simulation works. So that could express itself in more efficient ways that the freighters move about, or the way that the factions function when they're doing the management of all their stuff. So that kind of things. Trying to think, incorporating Terran Armada's faction into this such that they will also be attacking and recognizing the network. Like, I can see quite a few avenues that we take within the core simulation here. And then if we happen to not find a space feature that we just overlooked, then that'd be a prime example of something we got to go and build into Beyond Space. So we want to make sure that, you know, each of these modules have a core focus, and this is the gate network, this is the core simulation, and this is all Starfield features. And then anything else we're building in the modules, we don't want to kind of blend. They all have one specific purpose as to what would be in each of those as we're building them out and updating them over time.
Okay, cool. So like with regards to because I'm kind of interested, because obviously with how kind of Mining Conglomerate was, and the fact that you guys added on, for anyone that didn't catch it, this is a vanilla bug. She doesn't just want me to look alive constantly, and they're going to just be disabling it because it's a vanilla thing. They can't control that. Sorry. So with like, I suppose I guess the question I'm trying to kind of ask, or I'm asking, is why is it like, why did you price this at say 10 quid? Because I feel like a lot of people are gonna like, and again, that's not your fault necessarily, but they're going to be looking and be like, okay, Watchtower was $10. This is also $10. Is this going to be like Watchtower quality? And I'm not trying to say that it isn't, but was this a big undertaking to do compared to say like when you're adding the combat modules and stuff? That, like, from my point of view, like I would assume that the like, you know, like the finance thing would be more kind of time consuming, but the fact that you're hoping to charge like say a certain amount, like what specifically made you choose this price point, if you don't mind me asking, if you can answer that? Because I'm not like, you know, I'm not asking like from a kind of a basis of what you make and what you don't, just like kind of when you look at the grand scheme of how other creations are kind of priced.
So our approach for the pricing was that just the undertaking it took to accomplish this, right? So this was not built with the script extender. This was built using entirely Papyrus. This had to be supported on console, which was its own beast type of thing. So it's hard to compare because Watchtower is a story-based type of creation, really well done, has new features, fleet control, got mechs were added in, things like that. Is an excellent creation overall, and it's hard to kind of put them side by side because we are a feature. We've built a game effectively into Starfield, a layer over top of it. So you can't really put them side by side because it's hard to compare. Like, there's no story elements in here, but our justification for the 1,000 credits is what this has done, especially for new people coming in. Right now, think about it like this in terms of, we've also reached out to a lot of folks that are Space Sim only. They have not touched Starfield. They had no interest in Starfield because it didn't have anything in space whatsoever. They're going to come into Starfield fresh, and especially we get these fixes in to make things a little more intuitive. The experience in Starfield, in all of the testing we've done for the last few years, is completely different, and it's because of the pacing. I think a lot of the issues in Starfield, and I find there's certain, like Crimson Fleet storyline, I loved it, but I think there's valid concerns in terms of certain parts of the story, especially when you take something like Starfield and put it aside with Cyberpunk or Baldur's Gate. It's just not necessarily what Bethesda is known for, whereas they are excellent at world building, environmental storytelling, diverting your attention when you're trying to do stuff. And I think if you're looking at all the previous Bethesda games, you probably, if you took out all of the map of Skyrim and you took out all the map of Boston, and you simply had fast traveling between Sanctuary and Diamond City and the Institute and all that stuff, the same complaints for Starfield would exist right now. But because you had that pacing, that you might have had a part of the story where like, this is stupid, like I don't understand what it is, then you found an awesome point of interest with this whole storyline. That's what kind of made the stories work out. You didn't really get sucked into bad parts of the story that you didn't like. Then you kind of forgot about it, and then the next part was actually pretty good, and the whole game felt a lot better. That's what we've accomplished here. So when you're starting to play the game, once we get some of these little rough edges kind of cleared out, that pacing of the network where you have that in between traveling from Crete to Jemison and getting sidetracked like we're doing during our the stream that we've been running, and then you end up in, instead of the previous game where when you're going from Vectera to Crete to Jemison, you can accomplish that whole tutorial in 30 minutes. And you're just hopping, and then you're at Jemison, you're going to the lodge, moving on. Now what happens is you come out of Crete, and now you're going through the network, and you come into Polvo, and you're like, oh, there's Hopetown. What is Hopetown? I want to go land there. I don't know what this is. I'm a brand new player. And Hopetown then has quests on there that direct you to get contraband and get over to Aquilo and drop it off. And another one tries to send you to Neon, which Neon is an awesome city. And by the time you finally arrive at Jemison, it's 15, 20 hours into the game. And I think that's the core. I think that's what is missing in Starfield. I'm not going to sit there and say this is Starfield 2.0. But I do think if you're looking at what we're doing now, even at the stage of Beyond Space as it is, and when you couple in the modules we're going to build, and then if somebody, among King Geth, can build something for the outposts and turn it into star settlements or whatever in the future.
Outpost settlements when?
Right.
Yeah.
Then you
Starfield rather, I mean.
Right. And at that point at that point you're at 2.0. I think you finally have arrived at Starfield 2.0. And I think this is just one of the pieces. You need that highway between things to pace the story out, to let it breathe. And that's why we feel so strongly about this in terms of, yes, Watchtower was 1,000 and worth every cent of it. But we do feel that when you play this game from the beginning and you're just playing Starfield, it's worth every cent in terms of how the storyline will feel. And now that you have that ability to be diverted.
So regarding just look back here to it, I don't know what I've been trying to do. So two things I noticed, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but if, let's say, for instance, I took one of these gate networks and it took me to a different system. When I tried to fast travel back into that system, it was like, no, you can't, because it's relying on how the game does grav jumping. It's like you don't have enough fuel. Is that something you guys could potentially, make it so that the game was like, oh, well, he just went through that gate, so technically he should be able to fast travel? Or is that, again, an engine limitation that you guys can't really control?
Well, we can control sort of the fuel values and how far grav drive can push you. So if this happened very often, and I guess it's kind of a byproduct of the way we set the network up, because some of these systems are completely, even though they're close in the network itself, the systems aren't close to each other at all. And then you end up, like you're saying, kind of being isolated. We definitely could investigate and say, maybe we bump up the strength of drives and the fuel tanks so that it's less likely that you'll be stranded from any local system nearby you as a workaround.
Well, I meant more in the line of like I just went through a gate that put me to another network. I want to use the main map to fast travel back. Is there a way for the kind of the system to understand that, oh, he just went through the I guess the point I'm trying to make is it possible for the mod to kind of sidestep the vanilla grav functionality so that you can essentially kind of fast travel between the gate networks without, because I know the whole point of the gate networks is we're supposed to travel through them literally on our ships. But if I let's say for instance, I think it was this one here, yeah, so when I went to this one, and this one links to a couple of other systems, I think this one goes to Dachi, I think, somewhere.
I'm gonna enjoy this.
Might not be this one, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I essentially went through a gate that put me in another system, and I essentially have to backtrack through the gates because I don't have the capacity. I know you're saying you can kind of miss it, or you can modify the kind of the grav drive sort of stuff, But is that the only way you could see like yourselves doing it? Like you couldn't kind of, there's no way to have a system where it kind of remembers where you were. So like if you want to backtrack, it's like, okay, well, he was technically in Crete, even though it says he's, 50 light years away, sort of, you know what I mean?
Right. So they kind of have the way that the grav drives work kind of hard coded to the engine, but I could definitely see maybe like an emergency jump as something that, because I think it's beneficial whether it's vanilla or StarSim, where you're in your ship, something happens, your ship's getting blown up, and then an emergency jump system just automatically works. Maybe it damages your system. And I know folks have actually dealt with this a little bit and made their own creations like that, but that's something that would absolutely be needed in just the amount of combat encounters that happen in StarSim. So I would see that being something more when we do the autopilot, because then you're able to go through and let the emergency thing kind of fire off and it gets you to another system. But if the system was outside the range, maybe it damages your ship a little bit.
My game just crashed. I tried to go through that gate. I don't know if you were watching, and nothing happened. And then when I tried to go through it again, and coincidentally, that was a gate that would send me to a different system. And I didn't have points in Grav Drive. Would that be what prevented me from going through the gate?
Unclear. It's the engine just kind of does whatever it does sometimes.
Because I had that happen before, and I'm wondering if I was also trying to go through a gate that was like a kind of a system gate instead of...
It could be. So we noticed that Starfield is very unstable when you load in the game itself, when we did testing over the last few years, especially in space. So when we do a lot of our testing, if we got killed or whatever it is, as much as it's not a great experience, but when we saw stability in space, we had to basically exit out of the game and go back in. It doesn't seem to have that engine problem when you die, when you're on the planet, but when it basically tries to like reload everything in space, it seems to just break, and then the game gets unstable the further in the session you are. So it could have just been sort of a byproduct of that, possibly. I know that gate works because QA ran into that. I think actually Bethesda QA ran into that one, and they took the same path you did to try to sneak through Crimson Fleet, and it didn't go well for them. But they did finally get through, and that gate did work, so it should be set up correctly, and it could have just been some weird engine fluke.
See, the one thing I am, because while I've been trying to kind of, go the route, and I'm still lost in terms of exploration, not in terms of, like, I understand, like, the mechanic and stuff of, like, you're basically, like, so many down, so many across with the grid system. But let me see if I can... Because, like, I was, like, traveling through the system, because my mindset was that, like, okay, like, I keep going down and across, and, like, eventually I'll get to where I'm going. But obviously, when I got to this area here, it doesn't go anywhere. So this is kind of, I suppose this is the problem people are kind of wondering is with that. And I know you said you're going to kind of be improving that, but, like, in this situation now, right? So I've gone down, so I'm technically on level with Jemison, but I have no connection at this point. Does that mean, like, I essentially have to find a different route? Like, would I have to potentially keep going down, sort of, or keep going up?
Let's see. So you're over on the eastern part of the map. If you continue going south, it's going to go all the way down to effectively under Freestar territory. So I want to say on the map, and it's actually, it looks like almost like a minor bug. So you came over to this area from Crete. It looks like you went up to in Ursa Minor 2, and then you went east. But the left gate, for whatever reason, and it's probably because of the way that spacing works, is not showing up in whatever that third one up is.
This one? The Crick Star?
Yeah. Nah, the unclaimed. So it's
the minor 1A.
One of those, yeah. So one of those is going to be a west gate that takes you back over to Ursa Minor. It's probably going to be the second from the top, whatever one that is, because that was the one that only had one gate. But I think the one, if you go right and up one, that was the one you came in from Ursa Minor. Yeah. So that I'm actually going to put a bug report in right now, because that should be showing a west. Yeah, Copernicus 4 should have a west gate that goes to Ursa Minor 2 to get you back to Crete.
Just to confirm, because a few people are asking about this, so I can fast travel. So we're going to fast travel real quick using the normal grav driving. Okay, yeah, so I can see gates here. But I've discovered, let me just go to, you can obviously jump and stuff. The only kind of caveat is when you're starting out, you're like with normal Starfield, you're not going to have access to the systems of you have to find them. But with the gate system currently, you have to go through the gates to find them. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Right, okay.
In the version we have now. If after 1.09, if you don't like that system, you can flip it in the game options to do full map, like it is kind of like in vanilla. You have the full gate network and you have the full galaxy map, or the settled systems version. So you'll have 3 options basically.
Just gonna jump out really quick because I want to see, because I know one of them is taking my quest destination, which is the northern one, and then one is taking me south. So I basically don't want to go through either Copernicus 3 or Zosma. Wait, no. Wait, what? Oh, okay, I understand. We need to go to 4. Because it says here currently we got 3. Got it there?
There. You want to go to 4?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then once we go there, do more gates appear? So the gates do they not always appear initially?
No, that should be it. There's not as many gates when you get out to these territories. They might have only 1 or 2.
So when you said the bug report, though, you mean like this one here? Where are we? So currently that's Zosma VA or 5A, and that's 3. So which? I'm a bit checking. I'm just trying to figure out. Like obviously like this will be easier as you guys kind of fix certain things. Where am I? What's that one? That one is Zosma 4. There's 3, so I don't want to go in either of them. But is that the only ones that are there? So you're saying there should be another gate here, essentially?
Well, there's going to be. It's just not shown on the map. There should be a west gate in Copernicus 4. So if you're in Copernicus 4 right now, there's definitely going to be a map that takes you to Ursa Minor 2,
There's
I think.
Zosma. And there's Copernicus 3. And we came... Oh, Ursa Minor 2?
That's it.
Okay.
So that's the bug right there. I'm putting a report in right now.
No bother.
It should be showing that west.
That wasn't my fault, guys. I'm not a complete idiot.
That's my fault. I broke it.
But so because I think that's one of the things, because there's obviously there's a lot of people, because I know you said that you're like the initial intent with this was to kind of get in the kind of people who are kind of into the simulator thing. And to be honest with you, I think it's a really good idea, because a lot of people that are on console and don't have access to like say the likes of X4 or like even Elite Dangerous, they abandoned us. How dare they? But I feel like there's also and I suppose the thing is with saying something like this is because you don't want to cater to everybody, because that's how like a lot of the gaming industry is kind of going downhill. But that being said, I feel like there's a lot of people that would appreciate the kind of the fact that this, because I like this, like the gate system is cool, but I like the fact that it makes space more habitable. Like the fact that there's kind of hubs. Now, the one thing I wanted to ask, and I'm kind of curious about, because initially I thought it was going to be like, because in X4, you have like the kind of the gates that are like kind of like there's like highways essentially. And it's like in, like in Star Wars, you've got like what are the trade routes where you'll see ships kind of flying. Is that something we'll see? Like, will we like? Is it in the game currently? Is it not? Like where we'll see like traders might leave from, let's say, Deimos, and they'll fly from Deimos to the gate, to one gate, and then exit that gate, fly to another gate? Or is that not something that this mod does currently?
Oh, that's in. Yeah, so
Oh,
freighters are already, in the process. Now, it's difficult to find the freighters that are actively doing that, but they will travel through the gate network, same as the military patrols. And you'll have ships coming into your orbit every so often in the gates as well. I think that actually might have happened to you in the last stream, where a carrier came into the orbit itself and then look alive 50 times.
It abused me. Where are we now? Oh, we're close. Oh, we're back where we fucking started. Am I? Oh no, am I? So in this case, am I going down or am I going up?
Down. You're trying to get the Gems in, right?
Yeah. So I could essentially just fast travel to Crete and then go from there. Someone's asking, because I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but someone's asking about like things like Starvival and stuff. Like, can you just give a brief synopsis, like, about with mods and stuff, specifically mods that kind of tweak? Because I know somebody also mentioned, like, with like the real fuel mod, for instance, like is with like mods that kind of do like make drastic changes, is like say for instance, we'll use the real fuel as an example. Are you aware of the kind of the real fuel Sindarians mod? One that makes it so that you basically have to refill your fuel tank and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like with something like this, I'm guessing it's not going to say work compatibly because you're not accounting for fuel necessarily when you're going through the gates because they're instantaneous, whereas the game might see it as not that. But like with stuff like that, like in Starvival, like would you recommend not using mods like that just for stability point of view, or
It's tough to say because we're building this to be self-contained, so there's no reason why installing Starvival or any real fuel things like that wouldn't work. So if you prefer what they're doing to add fuel for the jumps, in fact, a lot of the moves we made in here came directly from Bethesda because of issues they ran into. For instance, we didn't originally have at least one network orbit in every system. And the problem with that is we had an older build last year, which we also used fuel to do all the jumps. But the issue you'd run into is the same issue with Bethesda ran into, and why they disabled that entire system, because their code is still in there that you used to need to use helium-3 to jump everywhere. And what they ran into was the same thing that we ran into, which was you'd end up getting stranded in the middle of a system, which then required additional systems to get you helium-3 to get out of the system, and it became a very unfun system overall. So I think the benefit of real fuel and Starvival is that as long as they're not having compatibility issues with what we're doing, they're great for folks that want to have those features layered on. And I want everybody to do the same thing with StarSim. Build other stuff on the StarSim if you like to do mod author stuff that you want to see as your personal space experience, and build off of these things here just like we're going to do. Because I'd be perfectly happy if there are 10 other mods that are specialized in certain things that do it better than we do. Use those in place of ours to give you a better experience. And it's kind of our entire process with the modules being separate. Pick the modules you want that are interesting for you. Pick the mods like Starvival that make the whole space environment better. And I think in many cases now, with StarSim giving you the gate network, features that are provided by Starvival and Astrogate and stuff like that have a lot more purpose and use, because space is going to be used a lot more often. So yeah, outside of compatibility issues, which we will try to resolve, they should all be fine. We've not really found any hard incompatibilities other than, I think, shipbuilder categories, and we have a way to fix that now. Everything else has been sort of just quirks or unbalanced, and we can clear those out pretty quickly.
Okay, perfect. And then, sorry, I'm just, there's Polvo. That's civilized territory. One thing I'm noticing, the pop-in, is that just something that is that the game engine?
That's intentional. When we tried to go and actually load all this stuff in space by the loading screen, it crashed the engine. It can't handle much stuff.
Understandable. So I suppose I want to ask you one thing, not related to the mod, but because I think we'll end up soon, just because I've taken up enough of your time. But before I ask you the last question, is there anything you kind of want to say or convey regarding anything? If maybe we didn't touch on anything, something today that you want to kind of touch on?
Well, really, it's just feedback. We're not locked into anything. If you're on the fence for what's in Beyond Space right now, tell us what you're on the fence about, and we will go and resolve it. There's nothing set in stone in what we have right now, so we invite everybody to come join our Discord. We're talking on there every single day, and I'm trying the best I can. If folks are posting on Reddit, it's just I'm also developing, so I can miss a lot of really good stuff for folks that have issues with this. Just let us know directly. We will go and tweak it. We're not going to fight. We're going to look at all this stuff and look at, can we do it? How do we get this stuff in here to make this work as much as we can? So that's really the core thing here, is that, if you think something's not right, let us know. We'll go and fix it.
Perfect. Now, actually, I've remembered something I asked in stream before. I want to ask again, because one of the things I thought was quite cool is when you do the new game plus. I know currently there's a problem, but it's not the premier way to first experience the mod. But one of the things that like seems really cool is the fact that it spawns you like far away. And I know that a lot of people like the idea of like I think one of the most popular mods with Bethesda games are the kind of beginning of or start was it an alternate start mods essentially. With regards to like when you go the new game plus route, it seemed to me that currently it will always start you on the same planet in the same location miles away. Is there any potential to make it so that every new game plus is random, so that you can kind of, you're thrown somewhere randomly? You could be in Wolf, you could be in Algrab, stuff like that, so that it kind of makes the exploration a little bit more fun. And then to kind of a side question that I know I'm throwing at you, with the systems in place, will they always be the same every time? Like this gate will lead to that gate, so there's no randomness between it. I suppose we should probably ask that first. Like with the gates, are the gates always like, you'll find this gate in the key, it will lead to location B. In location B, it'll lead to it. Will it always be like that?
Okay, so first one about New Game Plus. So this will be kind of a two-parter.
No problem.
We're looking into how to go through and actually create scenarios. And so it was one of the things I really enjoyed about the X series, X3, X4, was that if you didn't want to do like just the sandbox start, you could pick these little scenarios, and they were just little, I wouldn't say quests, but they were like, you started up and your ship has a bomb on it, and you got to pay back this loan to, a pirate clan. You took this money out from a loan shark, and it's like, you got to get back to us within a week, or we're going to blow your ship up. And so you have this kind of, I gotta get all this money and generate money very quickly type of thing, or stuff like that, where you can pick these challenges and they start you differently. Maybe you start up and you're a small corporation. So in Gazillionaire, you start and you have like a small headquarters, a few ships, stuff like that is available from the beginning if you want to go that route and have a head start. So that would be kind of like a new game. And then if we could find a way for that system to also work New Game Plus before the current canned scene we have now, then same process for that. So it's being investigated right now. It'll be a feature that we would expect to see within Beyond Space. So it kind of goes back to more stuff we would do here, that we would have those starts available in Beyond Space, and then you would have ones that we would extend when you have other modules installed. In terms of the gates, so we have set the gates up, so technically speaking, even though they're paired up, we have ways to kind of intercept them and make them work differently. We're doing some proof of concepts right now. So for instance, maybe this is some kind of like narrative we build down the road. We generate a whole nother gate network that is disconnected from this one. And the quest line starts up where you're getting the coordinates that lets you get to the connection in this unknown, unexplored location. And then it's a storyline maybe that pulls you through exploring this place and why is it disconnected and everything like that. So I think that's a possibility. And because we can intercept these. Now, one thing I'm cautioning in terms of our development is there's a lot of elements that we've done here that is pulled from X3 because it's my personal favorite, and then we're also building in from Elite and other ones. There was a mechanism in X3 called the Xenon Hub where when you took this over, you could say, I want these 3 gates, wherever they are on the map, to be hooked into this machine. And the benefit of getting that machine was that you now took 3 places on the opposite sides of the maps and effectively put them right next to each other. So it massively helped your ability to move around the network. I could see something like that. But again, I don't want to just sit there and take over good ideas from other studios and just plug them right in here. So we can find ways to make it interesting and unique to what we're doing. Those things absolutely be, one, they'd be a fun experience, and 2, it's more power that you personally have to do kind of what you want.
So kind of like the midway gate in Stargate, where like it lines up all the gates so that you can essentially, that would be also, I don't know if you were paying attention, it sent both me and the NPC out the gate backwards, which clearly that was not the intent.
So I don't know if
That's a bug, but
That's
that was
bloody.
quite funny. But it seems like, yeah, because I don't know what, like that's a few times that's happened where like the only way, like, because the screen goes all blurry and like you have to technically push past where the gate was supposed to send you out. It's kind of funny, but just so you're aware of that. So, but the I suppose the other kind of thing you were talking about, like the sorry, I'll let you continue because I know the other part was or no, I suppose that is both of them, the randomization stuff. The I will say regarding like the kind of like finding the alternate starts, it would be really cool to like, because like when you currently when you go through like the new game plus, you can change like your stats. I don't know off the top of my head if you can change your like your initial kind of your background, but that'd be kind of a cool avenue to do it, where you could choose a different background so you can kind of play differently. But we will end it there. Before that, though, I want to ask you if you, what would you say is you? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot here. What would you say is your favorite paid mod, and what's your favorite free mod? And don't say Watchtower or any Kingat stuff, because I know you and him are close.
You're killing me.
I know they're very good mods, but you gotta appeal to some of the lesser known mod authors.
So really, in terms of what I was using myself, when I was able to play, I haven't actually properly played Starfield in almost 3 years as well, unless I'm testing this. But I think a lot of it was space-based stuff. So Karotic with useful brigs and non-lethal, which they work excellent if you're being a pirate in here now, by the way, where you go through and capture people and I don't know, rip them apart and sell body parts and stuff with the one other one he did. And then Tennessee's work. I was already using beforehand and works very well with a lot of the stuff that we're doing. So both are there pretty much across the board. And stuff like Tech Runner and everything plays extremely well with what we're doing in here. So I think it's that synergy with other creations enhances StarSim quite a bit, where they have a lot more purpose now and a lot more space to work with. Out in the blackness now is incredibly dangerous if your ship decides to break right inside of a Crimson Fleet orbit. So, it's a lot of stuff. But yeah, if I'm not allowed to say Watchtower, which I loved, that's the creations that I've personally used in the past.
All right, perfect. Well, it's nice to see them because obviously, Watchtower phenomenal. But anyway, I want to thank you very much for coming on and talking to me today. And I want to, everybody, obviously, we're all very grateful to kind of get more of an insight because the mod itself is awesome. Like, obviously, you look at it, there's a lot of, it's clearly, as it stands now, it's for more intelligent people. But as you've said, you're going to be making tweaks to make it more approachable to people like me. But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. You can catch you tomorrow for the usual stream. And again, thank you, Vaernus.